Lots of attendees today. We're really excited to have you here. You know, and after this session, if you ever have more questions, I'll be putting a link into the chat of where you can ask questions on the community link after the event. But we hope you have your questions ready here during the session. There are a lot of people, a lot of wonderful experts that are going to be sharing with you today. Well, Tabby, whenever you all feel like you're ready, you know, you just let us know.
Absolutely. Let's get started. So good morning and welcome. I want to thank you all for attending and giving us 3 hours of your day today for our inaugural APM Summit. And I really hope that you're going to find it as valuable as we do. This summit is a long time coming, but we are 100% focused on your success and growth with APM. To that end, we have a fantastic program planned. We're highlighting the success of 2 wonderful ServiceNow customers, the Mayo Clinic and University of Kentucky Healthcare, who are kind enough to share their journeys with APM today. And we have brought in our resident experts from product management in APM, CSDM, and CMDB. We've also invited 2 of our best architects from customer outcomes, which is our delivery arm, to talk about best practices. So let me introduce myself and my co-host for the event. We will be facilitating both the sessions and the Q&A. My name is Tabby Voss. I'm a Senior Product Success Manager within the ITBM business unit, which means I'm focused on your success with our products, and I'm creating best practice collateral. My co-host is Lily Suxamlene. Lily is a Senior Principal Product Manager within our product marketing team, focused specifically on APM. We are both very happy to have you all today. We'll be available in chat along with some other experts, including Doug Page, who is representing outbound product management. So if you have any questions as the session goes forward, please feel free to use the chat. Okay. To that end, questions, let me reaffirm our hopes that you use Zoom to ask questions. We have plenty of experts who are available to answer questions as the presentations progress or directly after the program. It is a very tight agenda with a lot of content that we want to get through, so we'll be collecting the transcript to get back to you if we're not able to address everything during the summit. And let me share with you our agenda for the day, then we'll dive right into the content. So if you want to screenshot this, just so you know where our breaks will be, we're going to try to work them in after every 2 presentations, so you can take a minute or 2. We're going to start with a presentation by the Mayo Clinic, dive into CSDM 4.0 to consider its impacts to your APM implementation. We're going to follow up with another customer presentation from the University of Kentucky Healthcare and their partner RSM. Then we're going to hit the APM roadmap so that you will be well apprised of what's coming in the future as you build your own internal roadmaps. And then we're going to end with a presentation by our customer outcomes team on how to successfully implement APM. That's going to be held by 2 of our resident experts, and we will have a short survey at the end of the presentation to see what you would like in future summits, because your success is top of mind for us. So with that, let's dive in. I'm very proud to introduce you to 2 very accomplished ladies that I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the last few months. Megan Kennedy and Ann Roweeder are the champions of APM at the Mayo Clinic, and they have built a very successful program that they'd like to share with you today. Starting with no formal APM program, they've been able to successfully communicate the value of an APM program, establish a governance system, nurture their partnerships with key resources, and develop a framework and process for managing their applications. They are continuously expanding to new business units within the Mayo Clinic, aligning business needs with a technology roadmap for growth. So Megan and Ann, I am very happy to turn presenter over to you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tabby. I am going to share my screen. Is everyone able to see the slide deck?
Yes, you
can see it.
You
Okay,
just need
great.
to put it in slideshow. There you go. Perfect.
There we go. So thank you, Tabby, for the introduction. It's been great working with you as well. You've been really helpful and helping us kind of think to the future and our future state within the ServiceNow platform. My name is Megan Kennedy. I lead the application portfolio management team here at Mayo Clinic. Along with my colleague, Ann Roweeder, we're going to step you through our journey the last 2 to 3 years of APM at Mayo Clinic, where we started briefly into kind of where we're at today and where we'd like to go in the future. So the objectives that we'll cover today are a brief history and our journey, the why and what of APM as it relates to Mayo Clinic, some of our primary APM roles, our framework and collaboration, several department outcomes and discoveries from engagements. We will spend a bit of time talking about the APM module, the initial build, some of the artifacts and outputs we are able to produce, and some of the raw data. And then we'll give you some examples of dashboards that we've created in the ServiceNow platform and other artifacts. And then we'll end with reflections, where we started, where we are now, and where we'd like to go later in the future. So how it began. So in 2017, when the idea was proposed to stand up an APM program that we called it at the time, there was no formal APM program process shared service in place. So what makes us probably a little bit different than some of the other customers or organizations is that we are not staffed within one unit. We're actually 2 different units within IT. We have the APM team, and then we have the Office of the Chief Technology Officer, where we pull the architects in. So we bring in 2 different units to single staff the APM engagements. So we initiated in 2017. We started with the Department of Cardiology as our pilot. They had a lot of interest. They were a larger department. So that's where we kind of stepped through how this would look and work at Mayo Clinic. We completed that engagement in December of 2018. So another thing that makes us unique is that our charge primarily comes from our clinical systems oversight group. So that is a physician-led committee at Mayo Clinic. So they oversee all of the clinical departments that we engage with. They kind of set direction for us. They create the initial roadmap. And then beyond that, if we navigate into any other areas, any other business areas, that's driven primarily by us. And they had some very strong overarching objectives from the beginning for us. And that was to help the departments focus on convergence of application, maximizing the use of the EHR, which we have a single EHR across all of our sites at Mayo Clinic, and then differentiation where possible. So some of the big wins for us initially when we stood up this program was really communicating the value. So we really had to create this roadshow per se, really to help people understand what APM is, because there's a lot of definitions out there in the market. So what is it to Mayo Clinic? And some of our customers realized they were already doing components of it, but they really liked the idea of us coming and helping them and making it more organized and providing them help and the tools to execute this. Right out the gate, we established a governance and a hierarchy for APM because we realized with just oversight from CSO, we still needed our internal governance within IT, especially working with 2 different units. We nurtured our partnerships and key resources, which we continue to do today because we are the data gatherers and we can help with some of the analysis and, of course, obviously putting that data into the tools. But we rely heavily on our partners, those support teams within IT and the business areas to provide that data to us. We developed a framework and a process, which we continue to tweak. And then beyond that pilot with cardiology, we worked with 3 additional large departments. And now since then, we've moved on to even more departments. And then towards the end of 2018, probably in the middle of 2019, we really started to explore ServiceNow. So as an organization, we've been up on the ServiceNow platform for nearly 10 years. We started with change and instance and problem. I had attended a knowledge conference and learned a little bit more about APM as it was rolling out. And we thought, well, this is really something we need to explore further for us, because we were in a very manual world through Excel spreadsheets and Visio diagrams, and it really was not sustainable. So we decided to start implementing the APM module within the IT business management suite. It was not a big bang, obviously, because we haven't been working with the entire portfolio at Mayo Clinic. We've just been working a department at a time. So we decided to take a phased approach to our automation. So the why and the what. So what is application portfolio management to Mayo Clinic? So we feel it's a program established to help departments understand their system applications. The focus is rationalizing those applications, lowering the cost when possible, and then utilize the resources more efficiently, whether those are resources within the business units themselves or even the IT units. So we get asked this all the time from the departments. Well, why should I engage? This is a lot of work for us. You know, we have other competing priorities. Well, we really feel that by engaging with APM and working through this process, they'll get a complete picture of their portfolio. And that's going to help them in the decision-making on what to invest in, migrate, and eliminate, and along with their future needs. It all aligns with our Bold Forward 2030 strategy, anything they're doing within the technology space and digital health. And, you know, ultimately, we want it to inform a technology roadmap for them. So what is the department's role within APM? Well, ultimately, we need a commitment from them that this is a priority. It may not be their number one priority, but it's on their list of priorities, because when we don't have engagements from the departments, this is not a successful endeavor. We're looking for an administrative sponsor. We have found through lessons learned that if we have an administrative sponsor or a physician sponsor that helps drive this, it keeps the momentum going. Of course, we need a primary contact, and we need subject matter experts, because this is not subjective. We try to keep this from being subjective, and we want multiple voices at the table. We also need engagement from IT. So we need an IT leader sponsor. We need application architects. We need IT support members. We need representation from the EHR support team. Generally, a full engagement for us is 6 to 9 months, because we have over 3,000 applications across our organization, and some of these departments have 300 applications apiece. This is really time consuming. So we can't do this a matter of 3 months if we want it to be successful. And we stagger it, right? So we don't overwhelm the resources, because the needs of the patient come first. That's their primary role. So 1 to maybe 2 hours per week is the commitment we're asking for. And then sometimes we stagger that and it's even less. So our focus is aligning with our Mayo Clinic Bold Forward 2030 strategy, which is Cure, Connect, Transform, and how that kind of aligns to what we're doing. We feel like within the Cure space, differentiation and optimization of their systems aligns with that. With Connect, we're talking about artificial intelligence, digital transformation. We now have a Center for Digital Health that aligns with this. Transform, we align that to what we're doing with the Mayo Clinic platform and advanced capabilities. You know, the goal is to improve the departmental efficiencies and potential financial health. And according to CSO in 2021, so this year and into next year, Mayo APM is one of the top 3 priorities for them. So we have a good backing from our clinical systems oversight group. So ultimately, what will the engagement produce? So an application inventory, so an itemized listing in one place within the ServiceNow platform, within the APM module, then that table, single source of truth. Itemizing a listing of the application's annual costs where we can get those. Then a health assessment, so a heat map of a capability model that aligns with their business needs. And then that mapping to their applications. And then with that, we hope that that informs a 3-year technology roadmap that they can use to build their strategy from year to year. So primary roles within the APM operational service that we provide is within our team, which we have different titles. This APM and then the business architect. So those 2 units. So within our team, there's 3 of us. So we're a small team. Our primary role is to coordinate. We do all the coordination. We kick off the engagements with the departments. We determine who the sponsors are, who the subject matter experts are going to be. We schedule all the meetings. We lead most of the meetings. We collect the data, the initial data from them for their applications. We get those into the APM module. We do analysis. We gather more data. We talk to the subject matter experts. We produce all of the different outputs in order to inform them what's going on in their department. So that's the technical business fit of the applications, the surveys, the review of their portfolio, things like that Ann will go into in a little bit. And then we help facilitate those visualizations through the APM module, through the dashboards. We put a lot of presentations together. We help the departments to then inform CSO of the status and how things are going. The business architect, we almost consider them like a consulting role for us. So they're not nestled within our unit, but they provide that skill set of that capability model and health assessment. So they come from an enterprise business architect. So they have that kind of bird's eye view. So they work with us to work with the department to build out a value stream, to build out a capability model, and then score those capabilities through that health assessment, and then help facilitate that visualization. This is just a brief snapshot of our framework. I won't go into this in detail, but just to show you, we like to depict what, why, and how, tools that we use to get there, and then the teams and responsibilities. And this is from the beginning of an engagement to the end of an engagement. And then it also represents a re-engagement, which we do annually with every department that we engage with. Partnering across IT. So this is really important for us. More so than ever, we feel like we're kind of in the center of it with the data analysis and integration. But like I said, we're the data collectors and we do some of the analysis, but we rely heavily on other areas to provide that data to us because it's not all necessarily in the same place in ServiceNow, or it's not all in ServiceNow. We work closely with all the various architects in IT. So that's the business architects, the enterprise architects, the application architects, our architect boards. We also work closely and partner with all of our ServiceNow process owners within Mayo Clinic. So that's ITSM, asset management, the IT finance group, infrastructure portfolio management, which is just chartered, areas like that. We also, as I mentioned before, work closely with the IT support teams within each of those departments. So the clinical, those that support the EHR. And then we are starting to build out a relationship with what we call an IT business relationship manager. So this is a new structure at Mayo Clinic, that they're kind of the liaison between IT and the practice. So we're working with how do we partner with them more efficiently? And when we're struggling with a department and engagement's low, how do we pull that IT BRM to help us with that? So here's some example of some department outcomes and discoveries. So these are just some, I won't read all of these, but these are some quotes and kind of some aha moments and lessons learned from us from some of these departments. So cardiology, we've now worked with 3 times. So they were our pilot, and now we're on our second engagement with them. And they said it's really been helpful for them to understand the current portfolio of applications and projects across all the sites, and help them find ways to consolidate. So just having all of their inventory in one place, having the ability to slice and dice and look at the dashboards and see where Florida may use this subset of applications and Rochester may use another subset of application has been really valuable for them. Radiology really felt the value stream capability model was helpful for them. So introducing that to them for the first time, it was really eye-opening for them. They're one of our larger departments with a larger portfolio, and they have a lot of subcommittees, and they have a lot of service lines. And just seeing this breakout of the capability model really helped them to kind of highlight and then do the health assessment areas that they're struggling and some things that they could prioritize in the future. The LMP found that the rationalization of applicant inventory was really helpful. We did a small subset of work for 3 months with staff scheduling, where we really dug into all of the applications that were used across the organization to schedule staff. And they felt like the data we were able to collect and rationalize was really helpful in informing them of the gaps and that we have far too many staff scheduling applications in our organization, and they wanted to take some steps to size that down a little bit. I'm now going to hand it over to my colleague, Ann Roeder. She's going to step through some of our numbers and where we started in our automation journey and where we're at current state.
Hi, I'm Ann, and I'll take you through some of these numbers. We like to use this graphic to give a quick depiction of our progress. As you can see, we have 1,127 business applications in our module, which represent 6 different departments. Those business applications account for 1,351 application services. 445 retired application services have been rationalized through the APM process. We have 10 current metric reports. We save about 2 hours per report request now that we aren't creating reports in Excel. And we've worked on 3 special request projects by customers who heard about APM and wanted to utilize our services. Speaking of KPIs, here are some examples of the metrics we have on our dashboard. We have just started out with metrics and have not unleashed the full power of performance analytics yet. So these are more operational metrics. You'll see we are tracking how many business applications still need to be connected to an application service, how many business applications we have updated in the last 30 days, and that trend since last year, plus how many business applications are retired or non-operational. Here's a bit about our journey in the last 3 years. 3 years ago, we had a very static process. The information we worked with was constantly outdated because it was coming from Excel spreadsheets. We had to download data from ServiceNow CMDB, send it out to our customers, have them edit that information, and then use that edited info to create reports. By then, the data was already stale. In 2019, we had the APM module in our development instance. So we worked half in that and then half in spreadsheets. So we still had to manipulate the data in spreadsheets, but we were able to provide our customers with visuals from the dashboards we created in ServiceNow. And then in 2020, we kicked the spreadsheet habit. We went dynamic. The APM module was stood up in production. We had visual dashboards for our customers to view data in real time. And we had the database view that combined the business application and application service tables. 2021 sees us jogging towards our goals. We have application assessments and bubble charts to view that assessment data now. We have taken some baby steps in the metric realm, and we've now hooked up the business capabilities table to our database view. Here's a look at our build document. In the very beginning, we looked at many factors regarding what should be in the module. What should the layout look like? Should we have it look like the application services table form that we already have? What fields should we use? Do we use custom fields? What tables do we have to use for our data, where that's going to be stored? Should we use out-of-the-box dashboards, or do we need a custom dashboard? What reporting measures should we focus on? So currently we do use a custom dashboard for our customers, and I'm going to go through that in a little bit. And permissions. Who needs to see the data? Who needs to edit it? This is just a sample of the many factors we needed to review. And here's just a quick look at our business application portfolio. This is what it looks like in the module on the table, along with some of the fields we have available to use. And then talking about transparency for IT, we wanted to ensure we have real transparency for our customers. So the next few slides here demonstrate some of the reports we have included on our dashboard that are available for anyone to view. So we can break down applications, as you see here, by department or application category. And then on the next slide, you'll see we've broken it down by capabilities that research has, so they can see that. So that, that shows you that data management capability has 62 attached applications. And then on the next slide, you'll see we have it broken down by priority for our lab department. And then on this last one, you'll see application type for pharmacy. This is just a sampling of what we have, and I'll go through that and with a demo. And here are what assessments in the ServiceNow module look like. So we can assign an assessment to a customer, and then they can log into the module and you can see the customer view, how they'll take that. This is an example for business value of the application, and then you'll see one of the questions that they get that they can enter and review. Once the assessments have been completed, the output is plotted on a 4-quadrant grid for customers to view. This can help determine if there are any applications that need to be replaced or retired, and give them a little overview of how their applications are doing. This is an example of a department's current state capability model. It's a manual process in Visio. Our goal is to automate this process through ServiceNow or a third-party tool. These next 2 slides capture capabilities in ServiceNow. So this is the capability hierarchy view that we've been using. We have started adding capabilities to the module, which can be viewed here. And then on the next slide, you can see how capabilities can be viewed with our database view. So we can sort these capabilities and applications by department. And you'll see there's some research and cardiology applications here. And then the next slide shows cardiology's 5-year roadmap. All the work that we do with the inventory, capability modeling, and data analysis informs this roadmap that you see here. Right now, this is a manual process through a Gantt chart. We'd also like to eventually produce this in ServiceNow or a third-party tool. And we're just going to go through a quick demo of some of the neat features we've been using. First, you'll see our business applications in table format and many of the fields we use. These fields include application category, classification, status, managed by unit, business unit, and applications type, and their architecture type. So this is all displayed in the module. Next is our database view. This combines the business capability, business application, and application services table. By using a database view, we can sort by department and only show that department's capabilities and attached applications. So here we are searching by research. So you can just break that down and show research their capabilities attached to their business applications and application services. This leads to our custom dashboard, which utilizes the database view that I just showed you. By combining the data in multiple tables, we can create powerful visuals that aid our customers in making decisions around their application portfolio. You see there are many ways to divide out the data by category, status, user base, application class, type. They're managed by units, and even incidents. These dashboards can be filtered by multiple fields using interactive filters, which we have at the top right coming up here. So you can pick out quickly a category and look at just that data. We've also broken out each department into their own tab. You'll see those tabs at the top. So cardiology can come in here and see the data they need versus DLNP or research. They all have slightly different requirements in what they need to see. So we've given them their own tab to deliver those decisions to them. They can see everything right here in their reports, and we can create new reports for them as well, but this all updates in real time for our customers. And recently, we've also started looking at KPIs like we talked about a little earlier. Our first venture into this realm is mainly operational metrics, with the goal to form more actionable reports utilizing performance analytics in the near future. So this is just a quick sample of some of our dabbling into the KPI realm. We also analyze applications utilizing assessments, which create these bubble charts that you see here. Each application is plotted on a 4-quadrant grid, and we can hover over those applications to give us the scores individually that they have. We can also filter applications based on certain criteria. So as you'll see here, if we have all of them on here, it's a little crowded. So you can say, okay, let's look at a business value score that's greater than 7 or so. And that will give you just those applications so you can get a closer look. So this demo is just a small window into the world of the ServiceNow APM module and what we have rolled out at Mayo.
So I'll wrap up for us. We just have a few slides left. So just kind of wanted to highlight with you all where we came from, where we are now, and where we like to go in the future. So when it really all started for us with the APM module within the ServiceNow platform, we were on the Paris release. These releases don't line up with the functionality they provide. It's just the release that we were on as an organization and what we were doing within the ServiceNow platform for APM. So just kind of where we are on the timeline. So we really just started small, like Ann mentioned, just focusing on one department at a time, getting that data into our table, and really starting to work on those dashboards and working very closely with those departments to see, how do they interpret those dashboards? Does this data work for them? And then Ann spent a lot of time on that database view and getting that into production. Then comes Quebec, where we're at right now. We've been able to roll out the bubble charts, as Ann showed, and the assessment surveys. We've expanded our permissions to now allow some of our customers access into the table. We've worked on relationship configuration and view and form alignment. And then we're slowly starting to roll out some KPIs and metrics, first starting on the operational side of things. Later, with the Rome release, when we take that in Q1 of 2022, we'd like to be more advanced and mature in our capability modeling, hopefully have everything mapped for all the departments we've worked with to date, and then also have those applications mapped to those capabilities. We want to continue to work on our APM reports and the CMDB query builder, all that performance analytics work to just really help us fine-tune our reporting capabilities. And then later, San Diego and beyond, we'd really like to focus on the cost data analysis. Right now, that's pretty manual and time consuming, but we had hoped, by the end of next year or so that we've advanced more in the software and hardware asset management within the platform, and that we continue to work and integrate with the service mapping and discovery group, collecting and any data and aligning to anything that they've discovered. Also partnering with the infrastructure portfolio management group, who's going to roll out the technology portfolio management piece within the ITBM suite. And then focusing on required fields for reporting needs. So trying to understand as an organization what data is going to be required, what's being updated, because our outputs and our dashboards and our reports are only as good as the data that we're provided. So our focus has always been on not only a single source of truth, but accurate data and information. So looking ahead for APM as a whole, so we're no longer a program, we're no longer a pilot, we're considered an operational shared service within the IT structure at Mayo Clinic. In 2022, we see working with one additional clinical department and one business area, because we are still a small team, and we will have re-engagements next year as well from prior engagements. We hope to have some time in between our roadmap to work on some special requests. This could include smaller portfolio analysis work like we've done in the past, where we just work with a subset of applications and do a deeper dive for them. We'd also like to continue to grow our unit with FTEs. We've posted for one and did some interviews and hoping to extend an offer to someone in a few weeks. We'd like to hopefully grow another FTE next year, because the more we grow, the more services we can provide to the organization. We also continue to mature the application architect role. This is a very new role in our organization within the last 2 to 3 years, and they're critical to the success of APM. So we want to continue to integrate with them, and for them to integrate into our processes and capitalize on those skill sets as much as we can. We stay in tuned and follow the ServiceNow releases. We test every release to see if there's any changes in our module. We'll continue to do that. Same way with any enhancements that may be coming from any of those releases for us. We continue to enrich the CMDB. This is an organizational wide strategy that is important to us and the data that we collect and report on. And then also, as I mentioned several slides back, to continue to integrate with other services within the ServiceNow platform, IT finance, asset management, technology portfolio management, all of those. And that ends our presentation today.
Thanks, Megan and Ann. We have a few questions in chat, so let me ask. And to keep us on schedule for Tabby's agenda, I'm just going to ask a few of them here, and then we will take the rest offline. First question is, could you determine the savings produced by this initiative?
That is always one of the first questions we get, and it's a valid one because that our leaders ask that time and time again. So that's where we have probably struggled the most as an APM team. That's part of our cost data analysis. So when we're working with a department and then halfway through, we validate how many applications they've decommissioned or retired, or at the end, or when we come back and engage with them, we try to put a cost per application, or as some departments do, per user. The struggle we have with that is we can produce a total, whether it's by, FTE support, it's by number of incident tickets, or just the basics of the contracts and the service level agreements and those fees. But then the struggle is we get that number and then we work with those leaders and they're like, well, we implemented X, Y, and Z, and that costs more than the application we retired. So a lot of them, when you ask, they're like, well, we kind of just feel like, it balanced out, there wasn't this significant cost savings. So we're continuing to look at ways to be able to report that on that efficiently. I think that's where those future KPIs are going to come in with performance analytics. We have also integrated into our process, grabbing a snapshot at the beginning of an engagement with the department of their portfolio and a snapshot at the end, because as we update our tables, then those numbers change. So we found we needed to do that to at least have a better grasp on truly what was retired or decommissioned through an APM engagement, because we didn't want to take credit for an application that was retired before we even started with them, because that's not really accurate. So to answer your question, as far as numbers, no, we're not quite there yet. We understand the importance of defining the value to engage departments and have them work with us. We do have an annual impact report that we have created and we maintain, and we're trying to strive to get better with those numbers. So right now we have to really spin the value by what can they do with those outputs? How does that inform some of their decision making before the cost? It'll get better as we integrate software asset and hardware asset management into the organization and within the ServiceNow platform. But because that's not there yet, we're kind of grabbing data from every which way, and it's very subjective. So we have to be careful with that.
And let's see, one last question, which I think will align us nicely with the next topic. Can you confirm what version of CSDM you're using?
3.0.
Okay, great. And then for the rest of the questions in chat from our audience, we'll take those offline. Tabby, I'm going to hand this back to you.
Sure. And thank you so much for sharing, Megan and Ann. I'm super excited to see where you're going with APM and to keep working with you. Next on the agenda, we are lucky enough to have Mark Bodman join us. Mark is one of the founders of CSDM. He's now leading product management for CSDM and CMDB. He's ridiculously sharp and well-informed on the big picture of the platform. He's not just a ServiceNow expert, he's also an industry expert. So if you have an APM implementation, you're very familiar with the impact and relevance of CSDM to a successful APM implementation. With that, Mark, would you kindly introduce us to the latest iteration of CSDM?
Thanks for the introduction. Love being here, and I'm humbled to be back within this forum. So this is great to see you all again. And I recognize quite a few of the names out there. So good to see everybody out there, some old friends and colleagues. And so let me see, this is it, share. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yep, we can see it.
Excellent. All right, cool. So yeah, Mark Bodman here. As Lily kind of highlighted, my current role is product manager over the CSDM, CMDB, Service Graph connectors, mostly on the outbound side. And I do participate a lot on the industry level activities such as IT for IT and coining something called digital product, which you'll see throughout this presentation a little bit too. I will be talking a little bit about futures here as well, things that you can't make your purchasing decisions on. That's the key safe harbor statement. Just a little, so yeah, my experience is at least 25 years in this industry, and I've done APM since 2006. I implemented APM at Dell here in Austin, and I've been doing APM on and off since then, and also worked at True to do APM there to lead that product there before coming here. But I wanted to share something interesting, and you know, the funny thing is, how does your journey start, right? My first APM was way back in 2006, and mine started here. I received, when I was a strategist at HP Software, I got an out of the blue LinkedIn message from this gentleman, Kobe Ketzier, and he asked me to apply to a job, and I didn't want to apply to the job. I figured ServiceNow, what do they have to do with the stuff I was doing? Enterprise architecture, strategy, looking at this large software portfolio at HP. And he was persistent. He kept bugging me, and I'm thinking, why do I want to work at ServiceNow? Well, as I finally connected and learned a little bit more about ServiceNow, it wasn't just service management. It was a lot more. And I joined the company because of the possibilities, and the new product he was talking about here in this message was for APM. It was a product that was created here, and they needed a leader. And that was my history up until then. I've done a lot in this space, but it took a little convincing, and I'm glad I did, because this kind of led me to where we are today with regards to our strategy and where we're going with our platform as a whole. And I don't know if anybody have seen this slide before, this concept called Service Graph, but I liken this to looking at the full life cycle of our digital products and services. And applications were, up until now, right, APM tools are largely in the strategy team. You've got the enterprise architecture tools, which it's part of. That was my experience as well. So all the EA tools were sort of up in this space and didn't connect to downstream systems really well. I tried. When I was with True, I tried to connect our True system to HP's UCMDB, and that didn't work out all that well for various reasons. But coming aboard here, you know, the real reason I came here is to get into this space where we can bring all the data together on the platform in a way that couldn't be done with disparate products using disparate models. And so the neat thing here is that we're able to do this. The CMDB that we call what we call CMDB has gone well beyond that. CMDBs traditionally are there for operational purposes, but we're going well beyond that within our model, and being able to address things like EA concepts or development concepts to kind of glue everything together, to have full traceability from operations all the way back to you know, what was originally planned and what's the conceptual element of the business model. And then, of course, the feedback loop as well, to be able to get that service information about experience from customers and bring that back into the planning context. So this is quite a different approach here at ServiceNow, and I'm glad that we're really evolving in this way. And we've created this service graph in order to capture that CMDB and beyond part. And where CSDM came in, a little background on that one. When I came aboard as an APM product manager, I was looking for advice about what model to use, right? There was a huge CMDB model there already, other products being sold on the side with different data models in there. And there was nothing like CSDM that existed. And we created CSDM as an internal effort to get all the product managers on the same page. And it's just grown out of that. And now that's my full-time occupation as of about 2 years ago. So as we grow a CMDB into more of a service graph and we have our guidance is going to expand. So we don't stand still here at ServiceNow. We change all the time. We have a release every 6 months. And now we have a quarterly release with our store applications as well. And with CSDM version 4, we're expanding the model to cover some of the bases we don't have in the model today, kind of stitch in and also used within the context of the activities around that whole ellipse. And so if you're not familiar with CSDM, I'm not going to make this a course about CSDM. I'm just going to highlight some of the new things in CSDM version 4. And the paper is going to be published this month, later this month is the goal. There are a few product decisions that impacted this. We were planning on releasing it a little bit earlier, more aligned with the Rome release, but some of the products that are coming out are going to be later on this year or next year now, so there wasn't such a rush to get it out. So from a timing perspective, the publication of all the material we're working on, expect to see that later this month, and it might slip a little bit too to November. But the big new thing is build. The build domain helps us to understand what is being built after we decide what the business application investment is going to be. We basically invest in the business application, the build teams do their thing, and eventually we have operational elements in the model that are out there, the software and the hardware here, and of course this application service, which is kind of how things are mapped down in the infrastructure layer. So the build team gives us some visibility on what those components are. There are a number of use cases that the SDLC component will solve for. Microservices architectures, they will solve for APIs, understanding APIs and interfaces at build time. We will also address config files. We bought a company last year called Swiggle, so we're bringing in config file information here, which does get transferred over into operations to configure things like database servers, WAR files, running systems, that sort of thing. So we do have quite a few plans for this SDLC component. And we have a lot of products that will start to leverage this SDLC component. But like I said, those products are coming in later on in the year or next year. Another thing we added is a new consolidated teams concept within our system. And so with this, we are starting to leverage a team approach across the whole life cycle. So who are the folks that are your architects and the Apple owners associated to things? Who are the technical service owners? Who are the business relationship managers that are associated with a common set of elements that are linked up here, going to a product-centric approach? So Teams is really getting us prepared for shifting to product, and this is a big step towards that. The other thing that we've added here in CSDM version 4, this is a little bit ancillary to APM, but there is a next step. What we did is we now link technology services to service portfolio. Currently, our service owner workspace, which is our SPM tools, did not support this. We were only looking at business services previously. Now with the addition of technical services, this service portfolio scope expands, and you're able to now look at the portfolio of stuff beyond just business services. And that will probably further expand into some of what's happening with the digital portfolio workspace and digital portfolio management. You'll get a little bit more information about that. But what we're finding is the consolidation of this information so that everything is stitched together and related to what we call a digital product or different product models. And that's kind of what's down here. This was in CSDM version 3 also, but it wasn't heavily used. In this revision, we really doubled down on product model utilization. And the goal is to relate everything on the map here to its respective product model. This gets us to a product-centric way of managing IT, and it is the reason why it's in Foundation. The other addition here is the business process. The business process was not part of CSDM previously. The reason it's in Foundation is because business process can be related to a lot of things here on the map. The business process can be completely embedded and automated within a particular application service. It can be outside the application service, or it can be a combination of the two. So there's a lot of ways the business process can be represented here. This is an inventory of business process. So I just want to make that clear. It's not to do process modeling per se, although process models can be equated to a workflow, which is automated within our platform. So there are some opportunities there. And we are supporting common use cases in CSDM. So there are data elements that are in each product area, like APM will have something called a data domain on top of the information object. That's not represented here because no other product really uses that. And it's really only specially used within APM. But for business process, APM already uses it, but now we have GRC and business continuity planning that also use the business process here. So it's landed in CSDM now. So those are all the major changes. There's another slight change with regards to location hierarchies within CSDM. Not a great impact to APM, but there could be a little bit more ease of use to relate applications to the locations where they're used in the future. So this is just a crash course on all the changes to CSDM. There's some other things we're already planning version 5, which will be another year or so. We come out with a new version of CSDM about every year. So, and it's not tied to a specific release, but as I stated, like the SDLC component is the major new thing. And there are release products that will use that. And there's really no need to publish guidance where there's no use of it, especially if it's not commonly used yet. The one thing I did want to mention too is that the business application does not need to use the SDLC component to connect to app services. Currently, the way the model works is that business apps connects directly to app services. That is still supported. That won't change anytime soon. SDLC component is purely optional at this point. So as we get into more of that digital product manager point of view, we are going to be looking at these product model tables more explicitly. And you'll see we have a number of product models already there. And historically, product models were sequestered and used primarily by our asset management solution. But as we shift to a product-centric management of IT, we're starting to leverage these across the board. And so a good example of that, when you build an application, we want to be able to understand all of the different software models used, the inventory of software models, and how those are actually associated to the business applications and the deployments. We kind of tackle that in the TPM use case, but it's not as clean as we like. We'd like to be able to capture that kind of information at the design time, which is where we're going with this product-centric management of IT. And we have different things that use this product models today, and in the future, we'll be leveraging a lot more. You'll be able to associate products to a lot of other things as well. The next thing we have is the digital product management. So as we get into managing everything across this life cycle and also formalize the offering, which is what we have when we talk about technical service or business service offering, we're starting to get into fulfilling the vision for digital product management. This is a step along the way. We've got some things to close down, but the key thing here is that we're on the map. But one of the key things that we need to do from a CMDB, a CI point of view is each CI has a reference capability back to a product model. And that's currently not populated. So this is something that we're going to be closing the gap in San Diego with. So nothing you have to worry about for today, but just know it's coming. And you will see those references filled in more proactively. Another change here is just a quick drive-by on the locations. We are going to be, we now have a location type, so you can filter and use those locations more accurately. So if you care about, let's say, a building down, you can just filter on the buildings and anything below that and just use those locations. Versus maybe application service, you might want to say, oh, that application service is used per country, state, for example. So locations are a little bit more useful now going forward. And they also are going to have a life cycle. So you can say, these are the locations we plan to have. These are the ones that are no longer used. There's also a new lifecycle stage and stage status that was added in the Paris release. And all the products that we have on the market today are starting to leverage them. They're moving over. And the Rome release is where a lot of the asset management solutions kind of using it. But the key thing here is different products historically had different ways of articulating their life cycle. We couldn't automate things. We couldn't automate the flow of information or the creation of these objects or even deletion. So this helps to solve for some automation. You can't change these. And there's no rush to migrate to these life cycles. The products that you use will migrate for you, and there's a backfeed process to use them. If you want to use them for reporting, you could start doing that in the Rome release and get reporting out of that. All the products that we sell map into these, and so it makes reporting a lot easier going forward. And this is just a quick drive-by on the different life cycles. We have a life cycle for product models at a high level. You know, which ones you're going to be creating, which ones are end of life. And they get more elaborate as you go. For hardware, for physical items, you can lose or have them stolen. You can't have that on, let's say, business applications. Business application would be considered a logical element. And so this is kind of where we would have, you can also look at charter design, what's in build stage versus in production. So we are mapping everything to that. So there's a potential impact to APM there. And then documents as well have a life cycle. So things like knowledge articles or certificates, things like that. And then life cycles, like I did talk about. Digital product management, actually, I've covered that one already. Why is this all coming back up? Okay. The thing with CSDM, what I just wanted to highlight, in crawl stage, we have SDLC component is optional. Don't worry about it. Products that we sell in that space will start taking advantage of it. And the application, like APM, will start to leverage it too in the future as well. And I did talk a little bit about service portfolios. Those are now able to use the portfolios in the walk stage. And just wanted, last slide here, just to kind of, before I hand it off, big thing about CSDM, it's a timing issue. It is guidance, and so we do want to time it appropriately with new functionality and changes to products. It's a bit of a chicken and egg. As more products support CSDM, we need customers to also adopt it. If the customers aren't using CSDM, what good is the product using it, right? So for automation purposes. So we want to support the guidance with the products. We address the common part. If it's not common, it won't be in CSDM. So not every table is there. We also wanted to look at the, this lifecycle migration is going to be a 3-year effort. It's going to be about 6 releases until we actually accomplish the full migration for all products. So just keep that in mind. We've got some long arcs of changes that we're making in CSDM, and there will be some impacts to APM and some related product areas. And we are shifting to product. And I think, the session later on, you'll get a lot more information about what that looks like. So with that, I think I've used about half my time, and then the rest, I think, is over to the next presenter on APM.
Hey, Mark. Thank you.
Or am I early?
Yeah. My name is Brad O'Laughlin. I am an ITBM Senior Solutions Consultant over here at ServiceNow. And I'm just going to run through a quick kind of demo of how we see APM and ServiceNow. Again, feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A. But I'm just going to take you through kind of a day in the life of the enterprise architect and around a few points of what we like to show in our product. So every enterprise architect is going to receive a dashboard, but I'll go through this later. What I want to start at is, as an enterprise architect, I'm going to be able to see my architecture through kind of 4 lenses. So we have a business portfolio lens of how we align to certain capabilities, certain aspects, what our applications are doing to support certain goals in our business. The application portfolio, overall, what applications do we have? Where are they running? How many are off the shelf, homegrown, what's legacy, and start identifying certain aspects of that. We also look at our technology portfolio for software and product model, and hardware models. But then also, if there's a data breach or a security breach, we can look at our information portfolio to see, kind of what data was affected when certain applications were affected. So This is kind of our home base. This is our control tower for our entire application portfolio. I'm going to start off in the hierarchy map and just show you kind of how we map things. And I know Mayo Clinic did this earlier. I'm going to do this interactively. But we're going to start off in the hierarchy map. And this is where we're going to be linking our business applications to our capabilities and looking at our overall scores and, you know, what people think of our products, but also taking that quantitative data and getting into indicators a little later. So from here, I can see my entire capability map. I can drill down into certain sub capabilities. I can arrange it by fiscal years, and I can search capabilities as well. If I navigate over here to the right, I'll have my overall summary. I'll see that I have 156 capabilities, but I can also see, you know, what is our major gap? What are our red lights showing up on our dashboard that we need to address? Within those, when I click major gap, it will filter down on those major gaps. I can drill into these and see, okay, it looks like we have a low score for managing employee relations, as well as administering payroll. So when I click into these capabilities, you know, if I want to address this, I'm going to drill down from the top, but I want to see the people, the processes, and the technology. Those are our assessments we send out, and I'll go to that in a second. But also the projects and demands associated with this. So if this is, you know, not functioning to our current level or desired level, are we working on either, you know, creating a hybrid project with agile stories in it to make this a better application or support this capability better? What demands do we have? Who's working on this? You can contact them based on the demand manager form or the project form, and kind of bring that effort together to improve your application portfolio. I can see the business applications supporting this capability, as well as any services. If I drill down in these applications, I can start to get a better idea of what it's connected to, what's going on with it, and the demands and everything associated. So from here on the application, I can see my CI scores, ideas, as well as any, you know, Mark Bodman was talking about the CSDM. That's going to kind of quilt throughout this process. So within the CSDM, so the CSDM is going to be kind of our taxonomy for the CMDB. When I open this up, I'm going to get those relationships between that application. I'll also mention here that, you know, this is going to be that entire kind of landscape of what supports that application, but also what that application is supporting, and on an information level, what information that is consuming. I'll also note here that we can do this from the business capability level as well, and we can open up this business capability. So we have people, process, and technologies associated with this. These are all indicators. And within these indicators, we can kind of drill down into these and look at what comprises of one of these indicators. So, you know, these are assessments we're sending out. We are quantitizing qualitative data. So if I go into technology, these are business application, business capability indicators. If I drill into technology, I'll have my indicator information. I can see which assessments we've already sent out. But you'll notice here, as far as the data source, if I want to set up this indicator in a different way, I can. So if this is going to be, you know, an indicator that takes a snapshot of dollars spent on this item through projects every month, I can do that with performance analytics, another indicator. I could write a custom script. I could do a query condition on a database or within ServiceNow to kind of pull that data up and get what I need to assess this indicator correctly. So I've sent out assessments. Able Tutor, our enterprise architect, that's going to be me right now. I can click into that assessment that's been sent from this indicator record. And I can click into here. And this will show up on there, you know, my assignments or my assessments or my work tasks. And I can go into here and start the assessment. It looks like it led me to the wrong area. I'll show you guys that on the actual indicator itself. So the assessment will trigger. I'll go to ready to take, and I can look at my responses to my questions. It looks like this one already triggered, but these are the information you can gather. I'll note here that this is actually configurable. So if you guys have different scoring methods or would like to ask different questions, that's available. You can change these questions. These are just out of the box. Our technology assessments for our capabilities. So managing employee assistance, what do I think about that technology? Again, these are all out of the box. You can configure those to what you would like. But also on my capability planning, we want to start moving from this reactive to a proactive state. So I want to see what my risks are before they come up. So what I can do is go to technology risk and filter this by my risk items. So if I see I have overall capability risk summary, I can go into the high risk items. And then in my develop and manage human capital, I can see which business applications have that high risk. I can click on that, and that's going to take me to what I call the proactive versus reactive dashboard. And it's going to give me all my risks for that application. So let's go here. Here we go. So here's all the software models and hardware models that make up that application. You'll see as these start moving into red, I'm going to see end of support here, and then I can also see my end of extended support as well later on down the road. So this is going to, once these red lines start showing up, we're going to have high risk notifications, and then we're going to be able to see that on a dashboard and start assessing those risks so that we don't run too far behind and we're staying on top of these. So if a risk arises, I can also move this over to make it a work item or assign it to individuals or a team to start assessing that risk and providing the upgrades needed so that we can, mitigate that risk. If I select here, I'll go to new demand. That's going to throw something in the pipeline to our teams over on the other side, or maybe it's within our team ourselves, or whoever manages that application, to let them know they have, aging hardware or software underneath that comprises this application and needs to be addressed. You can choose the action that you'd like, and then start detailing what you would need in order to complete that project. So now you're reporting on what we have aging. We're taking action on that aging item, and then we're reporting on the cost, the effort, the story points, everything associated with it, going forward and how we're addressing that risk and getting rid of that risk and mitigating that risk. So we're taking reporting and driving that directly into action. I'm going to return back to the home base here. And I want to point out how we can analyze different parts of our application portfolio. So within here, we'll start seeing our indicators show up. So I'm going to go into human capital management. And the reason I'm going to do this is just on a basic application rationalization. If I have 27 HCM apps and everything else is at 4, 5, or 6, and we know we're moving to centralized platforms or something else, that should kind of be an indicator to me that, okay, I think we have way too many applications or items within HCM. So I can drill into there, and I can start to see a bubble chart. Now there's multiple ways we can align this bubble chart: technical risk, usage score, customer sat scores. But right now it's just technical risk versus application TCO score. But what's cool about this is I can also filter by anything I'd like, but I'm going to start bringing in data from other areas. So total change hours, number of changes, application, incidents. So I'm bringing things from ITSM, incident count, end of life. Any of that data I have within ServiceNow, I can roll that up through our relationships on our databases, but also through dot walking on the CMDB and making those relationships with CMDB and how these things relate to each other via the CSDM, to bring that information up to the top, report on that, and see what information I'm missing. So if I'm missing information, I can always bring that in. We want to make sure that you guys can bring your data in, and that way we can get a better idea. So I can click on this when I'm ready to create something. I can create that demand directly from here and move on down the pipeline and get this into an actionable item. as I'm going through all these demands, they're starting to pile up. I'm going to want to look at this from a roadmap view. So I'm going to head into roadmap planning. We just created 2 demands from aging applications. We have some aging technology. I want to see this at a portfolio level or an entire organization level, what our demands are. From these demands, I can click into here and I can color by different business units. I can group by goals or strategies or programs. And what I can do is start moving these down the pipeline and figuring out how I want to manage all this work I just threw over to my other teams, or that's it within my team itself. So this is kind of the end phase of, now let's plan all this work. So we generate all that information, all those demands, all from the APM. We look at our reporting, what's healthy, what's not, where are we at? We turn that into actionable items, then we plan those actionable items. The last thing I'll just show you is our Enterprise Architect dashboard. This is just going to give us a glimpse from an EA perspective as to what is going on with our application portfolio. So what apps are not in cloud? If we're all moving to cloud, maybe we have some on-prem stuff we want to get rid of in the next few years. Technology's out of support coming up. Any collisions? So if we have implementations that are side by side in projects, we can see, maybe there's a problem with these 2, by it having 4 implementations going at once. Maybe we want to, segment the work streams a little bit more using Scrum programs. We'll look at our application life cycles, spend, top spenders. But then I can also, look at my demand pipeline in more of a Kanban sense, and figure out, where my demands are at in my organization for these applications. So from here, I can see my demands, and I can, see where they're qualified, approved, submitted. If I want to move one to draft submitted, just simply drag and drop. I can assign myself to certain demands, and I can add any labels that I'd like. If something's machine-led, maybe we're generating demands automatically when something becomes super high risk and it's on a critical program. We want to enable that low-code automation. So, if it's super high risk, critical, and meets certain criteria, maybe we generate a demand automatically with that application saying high risk. There's multiple ways for that automation and machine creation, just to do a low configuration and get that out, get that ready to go. I can also look at the work across all this, my calendar, and the date of certification. What has been certified, what has not. So that I'm pressing right up against my time. I'll answer a few questions in Q&A, but thank you guys for having me today, and that concludes this.
You really were right on time. Thanks, Brad. So a few questions here. First one is for Brad. How does APM handle the hundreds of smaller pieces of desktop software that's not populated in the CMDB? Okay, so that's the first question, Brad.
Yeah, Shannon, I'd have to drill into that and exactly what software, if it's part of, a larger model or what. It seems like it could fall more into the SAM, software asset management space. There's a few capabilities over there that can address that. It's an interesting question, because if they're rolling up to business capabilities, but they're segmented softwares, it could be a little bit drawn out of an answer for the time we have left. So if you have a ServiceNow team, definitely reach out to them and we can assign an SC to kind of come in and answer that question, and drill into that a little bit more.
All right, next question is from Mark. Would you position a service management office to strategize across the organization to help put together sort of the capabilities and a roadmap?
Yeah, so service management historically is largely an operational practice. Okay, it's providing services to end customers. The service strategy book in ITIL hasn't really been adopted that well across the industry. ITIL version 4 has improved a bit by going to more of a practice versus process approach, but I would say largely no. Now, when as we sort of get to that digital product, we want to address services just like products, right? We want to be able to address services as a product. and that's what we're going towards. So I think in the future, you'll see services in that strategy discussion, because if that's your product, that's what you have to discuss, not necessarily something that we would actually see as far as like a product only.
All right, and one last thing, Brad did show a demo of how you can move some of your items into a roadmap view. And I just saw a few questions around, moving from PowerPoint into a roadmap representation. So I just wanted to let the audience members know that we do have products out there that you can download on ServiceNow Store, which is the road mapping capability, or we also have one that we've released recently called Alignment Planner Workspace. All right, it is 9:17. So I think at this point, we will go ahead and take a 2-minute break before we hit our next presenter. So let me go ahead and put that out there, and we'll come back in about 2 minutes. And then we'll hand this back to our next presenter. All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we are ready to get started. Welcome back. Next up on the agenda is a presentation from the University of Kentucky Healthcare, and it's going to be jointly facilitated by their delivery partner, RSM. So we are very clearly healthcare focused today. The team consisting of Paul Glenn and Michelle Girding from the University of Kentucky and Jen Scarlato from RSM will be detailing their implementation, how it's evolved over time, unique challenges they've faced, and next steps. So we are so happy to have you here today. Jen, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go ahead and get started. Let me share my screen. All right. All right, Tabby, are you able to see my screen okay? Perfect. Okay,
yes.
We'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, so as mentioned, my name is Jen Scarlato. I am with RSM working as an implementation partner with UK Health. Paul and Michelle, I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself and and your position in the APM team and implementation.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Paul Glenn, I am the ITSM manager, product owner of the ServiceNow platform, and own a lot of the processes in there. Michelle?
Yep. Hi, Michelle Girding. I'm the Enterprise Application and Integration Architect.
So UK healthcare is obviously not nearly as big as Mayo, and I can't imagine the nightmare that they have with 4,000 applications. It's just, I just can't, I can't fathom that. But we have, that is a picture of our hospital, one of our hospitals. We have 1,000+ beds. We are a level 1 trauma center here in Central Kentucky, voted best hospital in the state the past 6 years. Very proud of the work that we're doing in this area. Colleges in, so we're a medical research and academic center. So we have colleges of medicine, nursing, pharmacy, dentistry, and I think there's one more that I have failed to put on here.
When we started looking at APM, Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about why you started and what drove you into the APM practice?
So what really started this, I was with Michelle in the EA office for 4 or 5 years, something like that. And we were always struggling with, okay, what applications do we have? We have a physician wanting to buy another application, but he's the only one that's going to be using it. And we really never had a way to look into what we owned as an enterprise. And so we started looking at different things. And then the enterprise said, hey, why don't you all switch from your current EMR system to Epic? We'll give you 18 months. You got to go big bang, and you got to tell us everything that we're replacing. And that's whenever Michelle's fund started, because I left EA and went to stand up the ServiceNow platform. So Michelle's really the one that did a lot of what's on this slide right here.
Yeah, and I can say we started going out and gathering application lists from all of our various application managers. We had interviews with the business trying to get applications, and to this day, we still find a new application, probably once a week, something that comes through purchasing or needs a contract update. Eventually, it comes back to us and we get it added into APM now.
So as a part of evolving the practice, you know, one of the things working with UK Health that we knew is that APM wasn't new for you. And Michelle, do you want to take us a little bit through your journey of deciding on a tool and how you wound up with ServiceNow?
Yeah, so for UK Healthcare, enterprise architecture started back in 2011. Ever since then, we've been on the hunt for the perfect application to help along with the practice. We started with a different tool probably 3 or 4 years ago. We went out for RFP, purchased the tool. Once we got the tool, we noticed there was a lot of customization that needed to be done to get the tool to where we wanted it to be. Also, this tool was kind of a standalone. Nobody outside of EA really used it. While we bought licenses for them, no one ever logged into it. So it was kind of a standalone application, which wasn't benefiting anybody but EA at the time. When we saw APM and saw the ability to integrate it in with our incident and demands and everything, it was obviously the right choice for the entire department to go that way. And everyone has been very supportive. During the Epic project, I probably got asked for that spreadsheet once a week. And now I can just direct them to ServiceNow and have them look at the APM module and get what they need.
And I think one thing that's important to note is, when we were working, Paul, one of the things you mentioned was you'd looked at the APM module a few years ago. The ServiceNow APM module has been around for a while. And following Mark and his presentation on the CSDM, that was really critical. Do you want to talk a little bit, Paul, about how that helped make you make that final decision into APM? I think it's important to note that.
Yeah, so as an enterprise practice, we model ourselves after the TOGAF practice. And so we have business, application, data, and technology. And whenever we were looking at APM, probably 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that, we brought ServiceNow in and said, hey, it only makes sense that we look at you all for this. You've got a module out there. So why not just use you all? We as the EA department looked at it and realized it just wasn't going to meet our needs. The biggest part about it was the data piece. There was really no way for us to show the data flow of a lot of the patient data or financial data that we had. And so we chose not to go ServiceNow. We were a big ServiceNow shop, getting ready to spend a lot of money in it, but it just wasn't there. It wasn't until the CSDM model that's been talked about so much today that we circled back and started looking at it. And that's whenever they had brought in the data piece that we really needed. So with CSDM now, it really does help us not only in the APM world, but also CMDB and everything else that we're doing on the platform. So, we waited long enough for ServiceNow to catch up to what we needed at UK Healthcare. And I talked about we use a lot of it. So if you're a ServiceNow customer, reach out to your rep and they can give you what you're entitled to and what you're using. So this is from April, you'll see, and we've actually turned some things on since then. But the kind of orangish color there, that's everything that we're using right now. Some of the purple things is what we're working on, and then Ham and Sam we're probably going to be turning up in the next year or so. But you can see that we had a lot of stuff in the works, and that's why we looked at ServiceNow, and really glad that they've gotten to where it meets all of our needs, because having everything in one platform is so nice. Not just because that's the platform that everybody is going to, but you saw the dashboards and the reports that are out of the box or that you can build with PA or something else. That's extremely powerful to be able to take that to your leadership and say, hey, this is where we need to be focusing some efforts.
So when we look at implementation and we look at what we're going to deliver, we look at the APM module, and from a UK Health implementation standpoint, there's the APM module itself that has our inventory of applications. You can classify them, you can get visibility into what you own, but then there's really two other sides that sit on the APM path. One is operational tracking, and one is on the strategic planning side. So from an operational perspective, Paul showed all the different things that they have inside of ServiceNow already established. So APM from that perspective we did implement operational tracking, right? I want to be able to track how many incidents, problems, changes I have. I want to harness some of that information we already capture to create visibility around my portfolio. And then the other side of it is the strategic planning, right? I want to score my apps. I want to see if I've got 10 of these, why do I have 10 of these? They're providing the same functionality. I want to be able to rationalize my portfolio better. So from a UK Health perspective, part of what our implementation has done is it's grabbed both sides of this so that we can not only gain visibility from an operational perspective, but also get our strategic planning started to help push the program along. And Paul, Michelle, do you want to add anything to this before we talk about some of the details of what was implemented?
I'll say that the application scoring and trying to find the redundancies in a complex organization, that's something that really drew us to the platform. You know, whenever we started the Epic transfer, I think we had 4 different registration systems that all fed into different pieces of the legacy EMR. And then, you know, you start looking at some of these other applications that you have, and you don't realize what capabilities you really do have in these until you start digging into a lot of spreadsheets. Now, we wanted to stop that, and so that's the journey that we're on now.
No, and I would just support that. I think, I mean, we just put this in what, June of this year, and our Epic Go Live was also in June. So we've really used the support side of it, but going into the strategic side, I think that's really where we're going to focus over this next year, and hopefully get more of the business buy-in, I think, into the tool and have them using it as well as just IT using it.
Yeah, and so as a part of the implementation, you know, we had our application inventory. We're tracking application ownership. We're getting into some of the stuff around being able to track support, tracking support for it. We have our application catalog. We've tied into business capabilities. We do have demands and projects in place, but we don't have everything. It's not being hooked into everything yet. Our capabilities are there. We've started to do some analysis around having indicators and scoring in place. We tied into ITSM from an incident, problem, and change perspective. There's something called application capabilities, which if you're familiar with the APM module, there's application categories, and that lets you see the bubble charts that you can compare apps to. One of the things that we did with UK Health is we implemented something called capabilities, application capabilities or functions. And that lets you take a system like an Epic or really any application that you have and list all of the application functions. And then you can even indicate whether or not those functions are used, so that if somebody was to go buy something, you can say, well, I have an app that does these 10 things. We're not using 4 of them, but before we buy something, maybe we just turn that on because we're already entitled to it, right? We can already use that. So that's one of the other pieces that was configured in this implementation. We're just getting into talking about software models and life cycle. There's some other areas today that we're not using. We're not into the data domain space yet. But just from an overall what was implemented, this is where we're at now. And we'll talk a little bit later about where we're going for the implementation. But before we do that, Paul, Michelle, you know, nothing's ever a super smooth road, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've had along the way in your implementation?
Right. So of course we had the pandemic hit, you know, right in the middle of all of this project stuff, as well as it affecting the Epic project. The Epic project, like I said, we went live in June. A lot of resources that we had to implement APM were moved over to Epic, there was a last minute decision, or finally maybe a decision, to use ServiceNow in the command center for go live. So that had a huge shift in priorities for us. Getting a complete list of applications has always been a challenge. We probably started out with 300 apps on a spreadsheet. I believe we're up to like 800 now in the tool. Defining business capabilities. So this one we knew was going to be a problem for us. Our business architecture isn't that mature yet. And we relied on using a set of business capabilities given to us. And we just went with that with the plan of we'll go back and revisit this in 6 months and see how our business capabilities are matching up to what we need. Delete the ones that maybe we overstretched and took too many, or add more that we need a grainer detail to. BCDR, the disaster recovery, that also is not as mature as we would like it to be in the tool as far as our security systems go and everything. So that has been a challenge, trying to understand how to tier all of our apps. We tiered probably 60 of our apps to begin with, and now we have to go back and get the rest of them. So working through that has been a challenge. The emergency tier, aligning with the BCDR tier, and the business criticality tiering as well. Getting all of that set up has been a challenge. The support group, I think that's in relation to getting the support group set up, not only for the business application, but then all of the systems connected to the business application. So the servers and through the application services and all of that, getting that defined. And Paul probably could speak to that a little more than I could.
Yeah, so part of the problem that you have in these bigger organizations is you have the platform team that takes care of the server, you have the application team that takes care of the application, but then you have the business owner. So Mayo brought up cardiology, that's a good one. So whenever we're taking down a system, who do we go to for permission to reboot something or to patch something? And so we're trying to, work through all of that. Do you go to the application support team, or do you go to the business? So, just things like that is what that's around.
Yeah, and a lot of these areas are areas that we see as challenges, especially around the capability and defining those capabilities. Because from a ServiceNow platform perspective, the business capabilities expand beyond just your APM implementation, right? That's a platform decision, that's an enterprise definition, and that can take some time, right? If you don't have one already to develop it, that's a big piece of getting things put together. For next steps, we do have plans for what we're going to be taking it and where we're taking it next. And Michelle, I think you were going to talk us through a little bit what you're looking at for next steps.
Yes, so I obviously was very excited to see the presentation right before ours. Being the application and integration architect, my heart is always with HL7 integrations, ETLs, APIs, all of that. So tracking the integration in this tool is going to give us major wins, not only to understand how the applications are connected and how they should be connected going forward, but also when there's a support issue and in the middle of the night, they're trying to figure out who all is affected. Having this integration component there is going to help immensely. Complete our application list, which I think we can all chuckle there a little because I think it's always growing. We have applications coming in every day, either through the right paths or through the wrong path. So getting those into the system, we are getting ready to release a new, I won't call it a service, in ServiceNow where people can go in and request applications. And I think that's going to be a big win for us. Doing the business services across our service lines, I really liked how Mayo went and they got a clinical leader involved in their steps. And I think that's going to help us going to the next phase, right? Making sure that the business is at the table and going through all of these. So I was excited to see that. We do have the MVP live and are working on, like I said, a few future pieces, but we're just in the very beginning. So I'm excited to see what we can do going forward. And then we are mapping all of our servers to an application service, which is a daunting task, but we do have a technology architect on our team that has taken that on and has made quite a bit of progress so far with that free Lucy tool, the ability to map those hardwares to the application services themselves. That has really helped speed that process up.
So one of the things that when Michelle and Paul and I were sitting and talking about this is, you know, what would you tell your younger self, right? What would you say, you know, as we've gone through the MVP. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, some of the things and advice you'd give to those that are on the call today or might listen to this in the future to think about as they start their APM journey or if they're getting ready to reinvent it?
Yeah, so this slide means a lot to me because we're all trying to do the best. The second point on here is, to me, the very top thing of everything. This is actually my second ServiceNow implementation. I started back in 2012 with the Aspen release with a different area. And I did not have leadership buy-in. And if you go there today, what I put in the very first few months is pretty much all that they've done. I told leadership whenever they asked me to do it here at the hospital that if I didn't have their buy-in, I didn't want to do it. And I've got to say the CIO, the CTO, and their direct reports have been completely behind this effort since day one. So if you don't have leadership buy-in, I don't think that you have success. The next thing is don't seek out perfection, and then go down a little bit. You want to go for a quick win, especially in something as big as APM. APM is just a huge monster to try to wrangle. So do something quick. I really like the fact that what Mayo did was they went to one group. I really wish we would have been able to do something like that. So find one thing that you can say, okay, we've done this, we can show you value, and we'll do the next thing. Once you start, if you're around ServiceNow very much, once you know that once you start showing value, people will be coming to you for different things. And so find that quick win. Don't try to fly right out of the gate. Crawl and walk is just fine. But the other thing that we have really embraced the past several months as we're rolling out modules, we've had 2 go lives this week, is the value of organizational change management. You really do need to reach out to those business leaders wherever they are and say, okay, how do I tell your department what's coming, what to look for, why we're doing this? So OCM for us has been huge, but I really do like this slide. I think it's something that I would like to show everybody.
So anything else you want to, so this is the overview of our implementation and the good work that Paul and Michelle have been able to do with the APM module. Anything, Michelle, you want to add before we turn it back over to Tabby and Lily?
Well, I will say that the don't seek out perfection was really related to those business capabilities. I think if we would have sat there, we would have paralyzed the whole project trying to get those defined. One thing I think I've learned in my role is put it out there. If it's wrong, someone's going to tell you about it. But if you don't put anything out there, you're never going to get any feedback to move forward.
All right, well, that's it for us today. Lily, Tabby, you want to take it back?
Yeah, I love this slide. I do agree. Don't seek out perfection, leadership buy-in, and go for the quick win. Those are really good points. We do have one question. Earlier in your slide, you had mentioned that your technology management was done in multiple spreadsheets, and you had 300 plus applications to manage in those multiple spreadsheets. So how long did it take you to implement the APM solution?
Trying to think. As we said, this went along with the EPIC project, so trying to pull out a timeline. Paul, do you have one?
It was honestly, it was probably about 8 weeks. And so we brought up the fact that we've got an MVP. So what we did was we first started out saying, okay, we want everything. But then with EPIC and all of our resources about to leave us, around the first part of February was whenever they were about to leave us. We decided to scale back and got the requirements for that. The actual build didn't take very long, but then importing the spreadsheets that we have and making sure that the data was right. That's the time-consuming part, is making sure that it's right once it's in there. But no, it didn't take long for us to do that minimal viable product.
Great, that's great to hear. All right, Tabby, I think that's all the questions. I hand it back to you.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much to Paul, Michelle, and Jen. Really good insights. We appreciate you sharing your journey with us. And now, per the agenda, we are going to look to the future, and the future of APM is bright. So our next presenter, Amar Kandapalli, has been deftly guiding the roadmap of APM for the past few years, considering all of the use cases and personas that use the application, should use it, could use it. Amar is the product manager for APM, and I am more than happy to turn this over to him to give you a peek at the work he's been doing so that you can understand what's coming and can craft your own roadmaps for APM growth and maturation based on the direction of the product. Amar?
Thanks, Tabby, for that. I hope you all can see my screen. Hey, everybody, I'm Amar. I'm the inbound product manager for application portfolio management. So yeah, before I talk about what's coming in the future, I'll just spend like a couple of minutes as to what we have built so far, so that you can relate to what we are planning to build in the future. First, if you see, like, these are the 4 portfolios that we have built into the product today, because enterprise architects would like to view the portfolios from these different viewpoints or from these different angles, right? The viewpoints of application, business, technology, and information. And in the process of doing so, the enterprise architects kind of identify opportunities and solutions for improvement, right? So with that, so let us take a look at how the EA persona is kind of changing. So this is what we have built into the product so far. So before we get into what we are planning to build in future, so we would want to understand how the EA persona is changing. So from our study, what we found out here is all the organizations are undergoing this project to product transformation, right? And when most organizations are undergoing these transformations, EAs are playing a key role in this whole product-centric organization, right? EAs are moving from managing list of apps to managing list of products. So EAs are becoming more central in this whole product-centric organization. And with that, so what we find is, like, more and more these products are managed by the business, So EA is no longer the person who is sitting in the IT and taking some IT decisions and managing list of IT infrastructure, but EA is that person who is kind of providing his or her guidance to the entire organization well beyond IT to various businesses as well, right? And and more what we are seeing is EA is taking part in strategic planning, right? So the second trend that we see here is, we all understand that everybody is undergoing this digital transformation, right? Digital transformation sounds very good, but the reality is digital transformation accompanies, there's a huge change impact due to this digital transformation. For example, if I have to move an application from on-prem to the cloud, then I need to rethink how do I build all my integrations with the rest of the infrastructure, right? How do I build the integrations of that app with the rest of the applications, right? How do I relook at all my information flows, right? So moving to the cloud is definitely a good digital transformation initiative, but for that initiative to be successful, the starting point is understanding the change impact of that initiative, right? So, and who does the change impact are the enterprise architects. So there's an increasing need to transform, but it is becoming very difficult to pivot or undergo the transformation without understanding the impact, right? And there's a definite need for the ES. So far ES were interested in understanding the as is state or the current state of the enterprise architecture landscape, but there's an increasing need to also model the future state, right? To undergo this digital transformation. So the next big thing that we are seeing is increasing complexity in tech architectures. 4.5 years back, when we started off this APM journey, our customers asked us the questions of how do I model a business application? How do I capture the technologies, the software, hardware that the business application is consuming? But these days, every customer meeting that I attend, people ask me, how do I model platforms? How do I model APIs and microservices and cloud architectures and all? This is because the technology landscape is becoming complex. People are more and more, using microservices and APIs and, platforms. And in enterprise architects, there's a need for enterprise architects to kind of model all of these complex architectures, right? So with these three trends, now so what we have identified is we have identified two major themes of investment in APM product. The first theme is modernizing user experience, and the second theme is enhancing core EA capabilities, right? So I'll jump briefly into each of these two themes. So the first theme is modernize the experience. So what is this all about, right? So the first one is we would want to build an EA workspace, and EA workspace will be that one single central place from where the EA can access all the information and data that he or she cares about, and also take all related actions, right? So EAs need not jump across multiple UIs in multiple places. That EA workspace will be that one single central application that they'll be using. So that is what we are planning to do. And in addition to that, internally, we are coming up with a new initiative called Polaris, right? Polaris is our internal, what we call internal term for our new user experience platform, right? Very often I get asked, how modular is your technology portfolio management UI? Or can I configure the APM homepage? Can I add more widgets to the capability-based planning UI, right? Unfortunately, all of those UIs were built on the old technology stack, which are not very modular in nature, meaning, there is not much configuration that can be done to those UIs. But we are now good that, ServiceNow has now come up with this new UI platform, technology platform called Polaris. And we are now transforming all of our existing UIs to this new Polaris platform. What does that mean is all of our existing UIs will become more modular in nature, will become more configurable in nature, both at an instance level and at a user level, right? So we will be transforming all of our existing UIs onto this new platform. And then whenever I speak to customers, I always hear this saying that, there's a need to build more reports and dashboards into the APM product. So hence we have included that item as well into our roadmap, that we are coming up with more reports and dashboards. With that, I'll kind of give a sneak peek into, because I mentioned about Polaris platform and all, I'll kind of give a sneak peek into how the UIs will look on the Polaris platform. Again, do not interpret these as like final designs and all. This is just to give a sneak peek into what's coming up, right? However, we are currently working on those designs. So whatever you are seeing are like, very, very early mock-ups, I would say. Right. So this is how our current reports and UIs look like. And on Polaris, right, it will be transformed like this. Right. And as you can see, there's a change on the whole navigation paradigm as well, on the top and on the left-hand side pattern and all. Right. And this is how the analyzed UI will look like. And this is our existing capability-based planning UI. It will get transformed like this. And again, as you can see, it's not just about the look and feel, but as I mentioned earlier, it will be more modular in nature, meaning like if the customers want to add a different tab out here, or if the customer wants to add another widget out here, right? Or if the customers want to add a new filter here, it should all be possible. It should just be a small configuration change. It wouldn't be a very big change. Right. So this is how our current technology portfolio management UI looks like. And on Polaris, this is how it will look like. And again, it will come up with a whole lot of modular features, right? Ability to drag and drop, and ability to add more filters and add more widgets on the top, ability to configure the left-hand side structure, right? Ability to configure the timeline that we see, right? If you just want to see months and years, or just years and not just the quarters. Right. So all of those configurations will be possible. And also we are also kind of redesigning. Currently we have this capability. We have this dependency viewer on the in the APM product. We are also kind of redesigning that whole dependency viewer. How you can take a look at all the relationships that exist, between the applications, capabilities, and all the different entities that are present in APM, and also kind of making it more colorful so that the user gets to understand the context in greater detail. Right. So with that, I will jump to the next section, which is enhance core EA capabilities. So as part of this enhanced core EA capabilities, I'll briefly describe all the different features that we are planning to build into the product. First, as you know, we kind of built a product around 4 different portfolios of application, business, technology, and information. So we definitely plan to enhance all of these 4 portfolios. First, when it comes to application portfolio, the biggest thing that I hear from customers is the ability to start capturing components and APIs, and the ability to understand what applications are integrated with what other applications. So this is one of the very big features that we are currently working on. So I'll just give you a sneak peek into what the new components that are coming up. I think Mark Bodman mentioned about this in greater detail. So we are introducing a new CI class called as SDLC component, right? So this basically SDLC component would be used to break down a business application into different components, right? So for example, if a business application is built on, say, a set of APIs or microservices, then each of that API or microservice will be modeled as an SDLC component, right? And then this SDLC component is not just about kind of decomposing an application into its components, but it also enables very interesting use cases. One of them being application integrations. Meaning, if we want to understand like what applications, or if you want to understand, say, for example, take attendance management system. If we want to understand what other applications this attendance management system talks to or interfaces with, then again, SDLC component will enable that use case, right? And not only that, if we want to understand the information flows as well, meaning I want to understand how an employee contact information is flowing throughout the enterprise, right? In which system is it captured, and what all systems have the employee contact information, which is the authentic source of data for employee contact information, then again, this SDLC component would kind of enable that, right? So this is a one big change that we are coming that we are doing. And not only this, we are also enhancing our TPM UI on our technology portfolio management UI. In the left-hand side navigation, we currently show, I think I'll quickly navigate to the TPM UI so that you have better context. Yeah, this is our existing TPM UI. On the left-hand side navigation, you have an application. And once we expand an application, we show all the different deployments, application services. But now this is going to change. Once you expand an application, we'll be showing list of all the SDLC components or the components of that application, and each component will have its own deployment. So once you expand an SDLC component, then we'll be able to see the application services or deployments of that SDLC component, right? And not only that, one other interesting use case that SDLC component enables us is, right, we'll be building bridges with the DevOps world. Right. So DevOps, if you are using our ServiceNow DevOps product, they'll be again leveraging this SDLC component to kind of indicate what is the application that is being built and that is being deployed currently. Right. So there are quite a few good number of use cases that this SDLC component enables. And starting with the next release, we are kind of enabling few of those use cases. And definitely this SDLC component will become much bigger with the upcoming releases. So with that, I move on to the next feature. The next feature is Enterprise Architect Roadmap. So we had a very preliminary version of Enterprise Architect Roadmap in Istanbul Jakarta release, which we had kind of deprecated it back then. Right now, you would have all seen the ITBM roadmap component, which you can download from the store. So now we are trying to see if we can leverage that roadmap technical component and build an roadmap for the enterprise architect, right? Meaning enterprise architect will be able to build a roadmap in which the enterprise architect will be able to indicate, okay, what apps will be introduced when, what apps will be decommissioned when, or say, you know, this single app will be replaced by these 4 apps, or these 4 apps will be replaced by this single app. So all of that planning and everything, the enterprise architect will be able to see on a roadmap. That's the next feature that we are planning to build. With that, I move to business portfolio. In business portfolio, currently we support business capabilities. We have a whole huge number of customers using our capability-based planning that we have introduced. But there is a need to support more business entities, such as business process, value streams, customer journey maps, goal frameworks, etc. Right? So in the next release, we are working on the business process and goal framework. You will see a few features rolled out related to these 2 things. And in the near future, we'll also be, we'll be closely working with the CSDM team in kind of defining value streams and journey maps. Right? So there's a big ask for our customers to kind of model value streams and journey maps, and we are building features to cater to that. With that, I move to the technology portfolio. Technology portfolio is one big feature which our customers love, and many customers use the feature. So in technology portfolio, there is a big ask to build something, to build a feature called as technology standards, right? So it is called we are calling internally as technology standards. Right, in the industry, few people refer to as technology policy management, right? But they are all basically one and the same. So in a nutshell, I think I have a slide for the technology standards as well. Yeah. So basically, what is this feature all about is, again, in this feature, we'll be kind of integrating with our IT asset management, software asset management solution. Basically, this feature enables enterprise architect to kind of set technology standards in an enterprise. Right? Say if I'm an enterprise architect, I will be able to set, okay, in the product category of database server, the approved version, the approved software are, again, I'm just making up few versions, right? Say Oracle DB Server version 15 and above is approved, right? Or Microsoft SQL Server version 2017 and above is only approved. So enterprise architect will be able to set such technology standards. And then we'll be going and we'll be kind of evaluating, say, out of the 5,000 applications in the enterprise, how many of these applications meet the technology standards, and how it is kind of an audit process that we do. And then we evaluate and say how many applications meet the tech standards and how many applications do not meet the technology standards. And all those applications that do not meet the technology standards, we automatically create demands, and they'll automatically, kind of form the tech debt for the enterprise, right? So one biggest advantage of this feature is you will be able to automatically determine the tech debt in the enterprise, right? All these, say for example, Oracle 15, Oracle Database Server version 15 is a minimum standard set. And if there are, say, 50 apps running on Oracle Database Server version 13, right, then we automatically create a demand saying that, these 50 apps, the database server of these 50 apps need to be upgraded, and these are the available versions that are there, right? So that is how we'll enable automatic identification of tech debt in an enterprise. So that is one big feature that we are planning to build. And not only that, for the enterprise architect, for an application owner, when an application owner wants to build a new application owner will be able to log into the portal and will be able to select, choose all the approved software, right? As an app owner, now I want a database server. So I'll be able to log into the portal and find out list of all the approved software in each product category, right? Say in Microsoft SQL Server, what are all the list of all approved software? Right, and in Oracle DB Server, what are the list of all the approved software? So that as an app owner, I can go and pick and choose, right? What is the software that I want to use for my application? So that is all about the tech standards feature. Next one is information portfolio. So information portfolio, we have kind of introduced basic data constructs like information object and data domain, but we have not really worked upon the use cases. So there are many interesting use cases that information portfolio enables. Like last October, we released a business application risk assessment, which uses, the information portfolio, and all the risk assessment happens based on the information that each application is kind of using. So there are other interesting use cases such as data lineage, and then CI of data. CI of data is confidentiality, integrity, availability of data, right? So we are planning to build those use cases around the information portfolio. In addition to that, right, we are planning to automation. Automation is, we are seeing if we can leverage ML AI, because the feedback that we hear from our customers here is in APM, there are a whole lot of manual steps, right? So we are trying to see if we can eliminate few of those manual steps, right? Meaning automatically associating an application to a capability, right? So things like that. And the next feature that we have in our roadmap is architecture repository, right? So we would want to store all the architecture related documents, be it design documents or data model documents, right, as a repository, right? Or if I create a design document or a solution document for an application, then I would want to store all of these documents against that business application record, right? So that is our architecture repository feature. And here we are trying to see if we can leverage our ServiceNow features of, knowledge management for this feature, right? And the next feature that we are thinking is, again, it's a better together with our IT operations management product, which is cloud migration analysis, right? Cloud migration analysis basically answers the question of which of my apps can readily be moved to the cloud, right? We analyze, we take a look at all of the applications that are there in the portfolio and kind of say that, okay, out of these applications, these 100 applications can be readily moved to the cloud, right? And after that, in phase 2, these are the next set of 50 applications that can be readily moved to the cloud. So we started working with our ITOM BU team, and they're also kind of building some supporting structures to enable this use case. And it is being released in the upcoming release. So we are closely working with our ITOM BU product managers in coming up with a solution for this. And not only that, we are also integrating with ITOM to see if we can bring application usage, right? Today, application usage is just a field on the business application table, but we are trying to see if we can automatically populate, right? Say, for example, there are total, 1,000 users are using this particular application, or there are so many logins to this application, or so many hits in whatever format it is, right? Number of users or number of logins and all. So that is one app usage feature. And the other one is we are also integrating with event management, alert management of ITOM, so that, as an application owner, I would want to understand, I would want to see a trend of all of these events and alerts on my application. So that, whenever, if I see that, there's an alert that's coming up again and again, so that I can plan some work so that, I do not see that alert anymore, right? Maybe I can take some proactive measures in fixing something in my application, right? Because this alert is kind of always popping up again and again, right? So yeah, so these are like all the features planned in the bucket of enhanced core EA capabilities. With that, yeah, so technology standards, I spoke about the tech debt register. Yeah, so that is it. So
And
I know we just have 3 more minutes. So I don't
Amar,
yeah.
there's a question in the chat that maybe you could answer live, because I think a lot of people maybe have the same thought. Is you mentioned the trend to product centric. How does APM help the shift or inclusion of a higher level concept of product?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So basically, yeah, I think the question also mentions about hardware model, software model. So I think Mark also briefly touched upon this. So what we are trying to do here is we are kind of relating the application model, which is currently used by our agile product today. We are kind of relating that application model class to the rest of the application classes that we have throughout the entire life cycle, right? So with that, user will be able to view the product throughout its entire life cycle, meaning user will be able to set the goals or objectives for the product, will be able to define work for the product, will be able to understand the CI/CD pipeline for the product, will be able to understand the operations of the product, meaning the number of incident problems, events, alerts raised on that product, right? And will be able to manage the risk of the product, right? So we are kind of integrating all of these entities together in the upcoming release, so that the user will be able to manage that end-to-end life cycle of the product, right? And APM will have an important place in this whole thing, because APM is that product which kinds of brings in that end-to-end life cycle of that application. So that is kind of now changing from the managing that end-to-end life cycle of the product instead.
That's great. And there's one other question, Amar. Someone is saying these features all look great. They want to know when they're going to get them. And I know you might not have a detailed answer, but if you have a high level answer about when you expect some of this to be in the product, that would be great.
Yeah, so some of these things, such as like the SDLC component and all, they're all being released as part of the San Diego timeframe, right? We are currently working on that, and all the other features are in our roadmap. So the next 3 releases will be very big for APM, right? Starting from San Diego to Tokyo to Utah, and most of the features that I just spoke about will be released in these 3 features: San Diego, Tokyo, and Utah. Right. So any other questions for me?
Nope, it's really exciting to see that we're moving towards a more user-friendly UI, as Amar showed with the workspace and the what we call internally Polaris treatment, so that it's just more user-friendly, and it takes us to that next level with other competitors to have that graphical interface. All right, thanks, Amar. So what we'll do is take about a 2-minute break, and we will regroup in about 2 minutes with our last speaker.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Lily.
Okay, welcome back. When we say quick break, we mean quick break. So we are on to our last, but certainly not least session of the day. I have had the pleasure of working with Mark Hesto and Alicia Rodriguez from our customer outcomes teams over the past few years. They are both consummate professionals with deep delivery and architecture experience. If you want to know how to do something, Mark and Alicia will not just tell you how, but they'll also tell you the right way to do it. So they are the exact right people to talk about how to implement APM based on their years of experience doing just that for various customers. So with that, I'm happy to introduce Mark and Alicia.
Hi, everybody. Mark Casto here. As Tabby said, I'm a process consultant, business process consultant with customer outcomes, and I introduce my friend and coworker, Alicia.
Hi, everyone. This is Alicia, ITVM portfolio manager. And yeah, working with Mark in this APM experience. And in the last minutes of today, I will take you through what we have to help you with your APM implementation.
So as a BPC for ServiceNow, I spend my days helping our customers implement APM. Also everything else, ITBM, and as you maybe know or you will see in this presentation, APM doesn't just sit there by itself. It's a part of everything. It's the one platform, part of that one platform that we all see. Start off with a little bit of history. APM isn't something new. It's, we wish we had dreamed it up at ServiceNow, but this has been around forever, dating all the way back into the 60s. In the 90s, especially as Y2K approached, there was people needed to know what's out there, what's running. So it started to grow. New tooling came about. That tooling moved into cloud implementations and enterprise level tooling that you could share across the enterprise, something beyond just a diagram or an Excel spreadsheet. ServiceNow has a unique take on it, unlike anybody else. It draws upon all of these different facilities. And as you've seen today and heard, it's even more than just what this slide depicts. But all of these different things go together to make up, and they in turn utilize that application portfolio and the capabilities there. Starting right at the backbone of it, APM relies totally on the common service data model. I'm showing 3, 4 will be expanding as Amar pointed out with the introduction of CSDM 4 and the new features coming out in the next releases. We will see this model grow a little bit or maybe quite a bit, but APM lives in what I call the backbone of the CSDM, that business capability, business application, the whole design area, and extends down into operations, into the orange, but we have ties into everything else. One of the things is part of implementation, because we're talking about how to implement. First thing that you do is establish a good knowledge with your customer, with all of the people on the team about what CSDM is. Because I tell customers when we begin on the first day of the workshop, you're going to be sick of hearing CSDM because we're going to talk about it over and over and over again. But it is part of your life now, and it's very important. There is so much value that you can get out of it. But as far as implementation, if you don't have firm understanding of CSDM and the definitions of these key elements, you're going to have troubles throughout your implementation. So another picture of how this works together is these domains, these overlapping domains. You have design, you have the operationals, you have the core foundational data from which, if you don't have foundational, nothing in ServiceNow is really going to work. And then you have the consumption side with the services portfolio. Again, this understanding of what pieces are, how they're defined is really critical to a successful implementation of APM. So best practice, make sure everybody knows what it's about. I run modeling sessions, so we talk about APM, or talk about CSDM, what it is. We talk about the definitions. I ask customers to embrace CSDM and make your own definitions, starting with what's in the white paper, and expand upon that if you have certain, I guess, contexts or other types of things. You have to understand the difference between a business application, an application service, an application in the CMDB-CI Apple table, a something that's discoverable, and how those things work together. Then you also need to understand technical versus application versus business services. They all come to play, and I've yet to see a full APM implementation, even though technical services and business services, they really live as a part of service portfolio management. We always get involved with them when we're talking about APM. You really can't separate the two. As I think we've seen today, everything is tied together, but you do want to center on and focus on what you're doing first, understanding the future of where you're going. And as far as the modeling sessions, we just use things like this. You start off at crawl level. So you create your business applications. You define your application services and connect them up. You start to tie into infrastructure. Hardware, software models start to come into play, technical services. And when you're out to the run level, you're talking about offerings and how it's provided and business capabilities. And then maybe is even the most advanced, and what I think I see in every implementation we do, information is a really advanced level. Rarely would anybody start at that level. And this is just another example of some of the models that we use to represent the concepts, not only of CSDM, but APM. One of the things that you want to make sure that you understand, that the team understands, and all involved application owners, for example, is how are we modeling this thing that we call an application. The next is your approach. So there's actually a couple of maturity models in APM. The first one is really just the practical, tactical maturity model. Where do you start? You want to establish that inventory. And if you do nothing else, establish who owns those applications. So you've got the list of applications, who owns them. Then you can start to pull the threads and understand what these applications are doing. Who's the SME for the application that might know what technologies are used? Who do you notify when something's going down? All of these things come together by having that application ownership. Another key thing that you start early. Now, it may take you some time to get there. I've in fact seen a customer in a previous life before I joined ServiceNow spend 2 years arguing over the business capabilities. And I noticed, one of the earlier presentations, Mayo Clinic, I think, mentioned if they had tried to nail their capability model perfectly, they might have spent years at it. Start simple and grow. Understand that all of these portfolios are something that you're going to mature. So start with what you have, proceed in increments, and look back, look what worked, look what you can adjust. It's just, agile principles apply everywhere. Other things that we want to do in this level one, in this crawl, start to establish application services. Now that's where you've kind of crossed over maybe into somebody else's backyard. You might have a CMDB and discovery group within your application, within your company, and you're going to have to work with them because everybody becomes involved. So that kind of goes back, who do you bring to your implementation? Well, you need the CMDB guys, you need the ServiceNow Center of Excellence group, because you're all working together to build this thing. If one of the areas that you're working with happens to have service mapping as part of what they do, you need them involved when you start to define your application services. And one of the things that you determine, does APM own the application services, or does CMDB and the service mapping group? And usually it's a cross in between. It really is contextual and depends upon what other things are happening in ServiceNow. But that is something for success that you've got to understand. You don't want to have siloed groups not working together is the main point here. Going to level 2, what we call walk. Once you have that inventory, you can start to measure. So we've mentioned, and maybe not everybody's familiar with what indicators are. Indicators are a really unique facility compared to other tools that's within ServiceNow that allow us to establish metrics and KPIs and then the ability to measure key elements of our application inventory. There's operational type indicators like problem, change, incident. You know, if something has a high number of incidents, maybe you got a problem, maybe we're going to look at getting rid of it. Other kinds of things, such as evaluating business value. That's not something you can really measure electronically. You use surveys in the assessment facilities. All of that is there to help you define how you measure applications. And quite often what we find when we begin, maybe right at the first of this level 2 maturity, you only use 2 or 3 of the indicators and you do your scoring on it. The key thing though is that you can create an apples to apples comparison across your application. You know, both of the presenters we saw today from actual companies that have implemented APM, they're using that comparison to say and look at how the applications stack up against each other. That's really great stuff. The other area of maturity that we talk about, and really one of the key use cases of APM, is for rationalization. So this measurement gives you something to be able to do that comparison. You're not just putting your thumb in there. You have real value and real data by which you can make those decisions. Application roadmaps. So you have the lifecycle status and the new lifecycle capabilities that's coming up with, came out with CSDM 3 and is going to be more and more incorporated. But in another unique feature of APM and ServiceNow is you indicate the actions that you're going to take via demands. And if you have PPM implemented, you've got project available. So you can not only see the demand, but you also see actual execution that can be tracked against this application. Next level, technology lifecycle. So we talked about that. One of the things that you want to be able to understand of the application is, how's this thing built? What are the key technologies? And from that, what are the technology risks that we might have? That becomes a really important part of that inventory. Information portfolio, what information assets are we using and are they critical? These information assets might be tied into, if you have the integrated risk management module turned on into IRM, there's parts of IRM that might apply certain policies or compliance or audits or other controls against your application based off use of information. There's many other uses like tracking and understanding regulatory information or privacy information, PII or PCI, PHI for the healthcare. All of those things can be part of what you might do with information portfolio. And at the level 2, you really are set up for that rationalization. You now have indicators that can give you a score. You can start to look across your application inventory and identify potentially applications that maybe you could get rid of them. If you can retire a single enterprise application in the course of your analysis and replace it or just use another existing one, you may save enough money to cover your APM licensing fees for a year, just a single application. There's all kinds of possibilities there. Other things that are coming into play at this level 2, discovery and service mapping, also software asset management. Again, this is going back to being a platform citizen that APM is, and using these other powerful facilities within ServiceNow to enhance what you get. Finally, in level 3, we start looking at much more intricate things such as total cost of ownership, getting those costs in there. That's something everybody wants. And by the way, costing becomes part of that measurement. Technology risk management. So we've talked about TPM, getting the technology life cycles set up. Now we want to understand what the risks are. Capabilities comes to maturity and fruition, and you can start to do your strategic level planning from the capability level. Capability being, this is what our company does, and we want to understand the tooling that we do it with. That's the business applications, and how strong are these capabilities? How well are they being supported via the technology catalog? And then, from that, we've reached the advanced application rationalization. You can make, it becomes part of your DNA. When you first start, there's resistance. Everybody says, oh, well, that's a bunch of work that we're going to have to take on. We can't do that. And there's the resistance. At level 3, it becomes part of the DNA, and it's just part of your daily life, and you can have a continuous process of evaluating and managing using this thing that ties everything from all the way down to the data center floor, from the physical all the way to the abstract of capabilities. We mentioned there's a second maturity model. This is how ServiceNow views that special use case, which is a really powerful and important use case, rationalization. So level 1, you're getting your list of applications together, and you start to have them categorized. You understand who owns them. Level 2, you start to do basic rationalization, maybe on just a couple of indicators. Level 3, more and more of APM is enabled and being used. Also, you've had that time. For example, if you're doing the ITSM connections, the incident problem and change as part of your indicators, it takes months to build up recognizable trends so that you can really make good decision on what's going. Because you need to collect the number of incidents over a quarter or the number of incidents over a year to really be able to understand the trends that are happening in that area. And then finally, level 4, start to use more and more of the facilities of ServiceNow to help make your decisions, use workflows to drive those processes. So the key use cases, the center of it is this inventory, that list. We map our application infrastructure to application. So you want to know what's running out there in the IT environments that really make this thing up, and understand that full lineage. From the other side of it, you want to know what capabilities are we supporting, and we want to be aligned. And then the next key part is what technologies, a normalized list, not just the stuff that's very hard to decipher as you see coming off of CMDB Discovery. You want a nice normalized, here's the normalized version of this software technology, here's its manufacturer's support life cycle. So now we can make rational decisions from this. Score your application using everything you've done here. You're attached down at the infrastructure level, and you can start to make decisions based on looking up at the capabilities. What capabilities do we support? Below, what things are supporting this application, helping it run? What are the technologies and the risks? We can start to assess it. Another whole facet of this that you have to establish as part of the process is how do we maintain that data? Establish and trying to do it as one small group can be very difficult. Ideally, you distribute that maintenance to the application owners and let them help maintain their information using certification audits, the various facilities that APM and the platform brings with it. And finally, we're aligning to this operations, ITSM activities are aligned to our application, so we understand what's happening. And it's just a different view on these use cases. Strategically, we want to understand technical debt. We want to rationalize the portfolio and reduce our costs. And we want to know what capabilities. The stakeholders in this area are the CIOs, enterprise architecture, business leaders. They're looking at it from a high-level strategic level. Operationally, operation wants to know who owns this thing. Who do I call when I'm going to shut something down? Operations needs a trusted source of that list. That list is just in and of itself is valuable because you need to know who to call. You need to know what things are out there. Understanding the complexity, the architecture of it. You see the enterprise architecture kind of sits in both sides of this because the enterprise architect is your liaison between your technical side and your business side of things. So underneath, or really actually on top of all this, is establishing a good process. The process is a good the APM in and of itself can be rather simple. It's just, populate this couple of 3 tables and you're going, but it's good process that's going to make this happen because so much of it is not electronically discoverable. So you got to have a process that allows people to request a new business application record. You've got to have a process that says when this happens in the course of our investment planning, we need an application record that represents this application that we're going to build. You probably don't want to do it at the end of things after it's already been built and you register it. It's ideal to do it before you've ever built the new application. And it could be a COTS application, it could be an internally homegrown application. The meaning is still the same. There is work and investment going on to introduce something new, and you need to have a process around it. Processes need to have clear definitions and roles. But that's just part of any good process design. And where you're working with a customer, and I'm speaking really from the terms of an implementer, you're working with a customer that already has an APM practice. You've got to respect and understand the existing processes, and there's a level of adaptation that has to go on. Key things to define. So there's already some out-of-the-box facility to support things like registration of a record maintenance, retirement, architectural reviews. So these things get tied into other processes like maybe change. Before you go submit that change, you might have a requirement that an architectural review board has to look at what's going on. And so we provide facilities out of the box to drive this. So consider that as part of your process design. APM is incomplete without application services. I talked about it a moment ago. Who owns application services? Is it a mutual ownership? Maybe the application owner requests it and then it's reviewed by a CMDB librarian or somebody in service mapping. There needs to be a process around that. And that process may not happen at the first. It can be rather advanced. But there needs to be something decided and established so that you have good coordination between the top and the bottom. Process should consider business application from conceptualization all the way through retirement. So this is what I was talking about. You want to build a new capability. You're the process owner, or you're the sponsor of this new capability. There will be some sort of process within your company to go and do this and make this investment. Once you've reached the point where, yeah, we're really going to do this, you need to start to express it. And if you create your business application record as a part of that process early, you get the whole life cycle, the whole lifetime. And then finally, I see it over and over again, and I'm just emphasizing, use demand. If you don't have the PPM module, you won't have project and agile and that sort of stuff, but you will have demand as part of your license with APM. Use demand to indicate the actions that we need to take. This is kind of an eye chart here. Apologies, I just want to summarize what this is. This is an example of what I was talking about. At this level, right here, this level, we are in our demand phase. And at the appropriate point, as determined by your process, we create that record. As it goes through design, that application record is part of the design. It becomes a reference point for certain things like maybe operations, enterprise architectures, others to look at it. As you start to develop the application, so this, assuming everything gets approved, so you develop the application, things are going to start appearing under discovery. You're going to see those development environments spring up. Well, discovery picks that up. You create your development application service maybe and tie it in. And things continue to grow until you go live into production. And then you have the steady state maintenance, not only of the actuals, the things that are on the floor, the infrastructure, but you also have steady state maintenance of the business application record. So inventory best practice. Each and every attribute in use should have a reason, and there should, and for being in the process, it has to bring value. So every record you put in the system, every attribute you have on those records has to bring you value, or it's not worth dealing with. Don't use it. Now, if you say in the future, we're going to do this, so we're going to keep this attribute, that's great. This is really speaking to migrations that we do. We will see customers that have an old system and they have 100 attributes on business application. What do we do with those 100 attributes? We go through, what's the process behind this? Okay, that one has a process, it's important, it comes across. This one has no process, somebody put it in 3 years ago and we don't really use it, it's out of here. That's the kind of analysis that you want to do. You want to keep as thin as possible. ServiceNow is highly configurable, but if you throw a bunch of junk in it, you just makes your job harder in maintaining this. So that's kind of what the first three are. Other things are just kind of a more tactical. You're migrating from a legacy system. One approach of capturing some of those extra attributes that you need is to create an appendix table that holds this extra information. So you have business application, you keep it rather pure, the CMDB/CI business app table, but you have an appendix table that carries your customer specific attributes. Process should distribute ownership of all the application records. The IT owner owns the record. That's just kind of a basic approach. Your world may be different, but you got to identify who owns that record and hopefully distribute that ownership. It's rather difficult for a small team to manage the application inventory for a whole giant enterprise. For a customer with a new APM practice, start small. You could start off as simple with name, description, IT owner, the business, the status of the application, and From there, you can use the data certification facility to drive gathering new attributes. As you say, we're introducing more and more attributes in here. Use data certification for what I call data campaigns. Just a possibility. Utilize a business application lifecycle catalog and expand upon the concepts of that. Make it easy for the owners to maintain complex data like the association to a business application or to application service or the association to a business capability. Using catalog items, it's much easier than trying to use some of the forms and that kind of stuff that can be rather error prone. You can make it simple. You cut down on data errors. Establish health reviews, just like CMDB, which has CMDB health, very important part of the process. You need to have that data certification and attestation as a part of your process to make sure that the data is dependable. And then finally, desired state, scripted state, those things really are there. They'll help you catch things when like somebody disappears, maybe an IT owner retires. You don't know as a part of the team. The system removes that user and all of a sudden you have an application without an IT owner. These can help you catch that. They can also help you with things like your structure. Every application should have at least one capability. Every application service should have a business application. All of these kinds of things. Data migration, just a little bit of comment here, is plan ahead, run your tests. And we recommend current data. Don't try to bring over all of that retired stuff. It's a great time to clean out the closet. So capabilities. So the capability model can be very difficult to define. Like I said, I've seen a customer in a previous company. I watched them argue for 2 years over their capability model. It was brutal. When you start out, if you have nothing else, visit APQC. They have a cross-industry, and there's a good likelihood they may even have an industry-specific model. Now, they're about processes, but the top level groups or the top 3 levels of the APQC model makes a great starter set. And the key here is starter. This is where you start. You get rid of the ones that you don't need, and maybe you add new that really represent what you're about, what your company does. Remember, this is kind of an expression of who you are. Now, technology portfolio management can be very difficult. If you don't have all of the facilities turned on and you're having to do it manually, you are going to have a lot of clicking and stuff to basically get to this model. The business application service, and it's at the service level where we associate those normalized software models and their life cycles. That can be real difficult to do manually. It's not impossible. I've seen customers do it for years, but ServiceNow brings you the possibility of near full automation. The reason I say near full is because if we look at this, there's a point where what we call the suggestion engine will give you a list of suggestions, but an SME on the application does still have to go through and say, no, we don't use Minesweeper in this application, so we're not going to associate it. But we do use SQL Server 2016 and R2 version, blah, blah, blah. We're going to associate that. So make sure for TPM, make sure the customer understands the model, make sure where that data is coming from. As of Quebec, there's a very special consideration. The model under software asset management was changed for how life cycles are done. Life cycles are no longer directly associated to the software model. there's actually a query relationship that is used to go find those life cycles. So you have to make sure that you understand the concept of the full version. That's how you find the right life cycle that you want to represent. And it's how you get to those minor version releases where the life cycles are carried, especially for manufacturers like Microsoft or Oracle. So information, we talked about a bit. This is the data model for it. It is a bit advanced, but can be really powerful. And we see it used for things such as PII, PHI, PCI, but also just for understanding what information assets. Another thing, looking ahead with the new SDLC component, and we start using that to model integrations between applications, guess what? You want to know what data is being passed back and forth. Information portfolio is going to be a great facilitator for it. Another key part that people want to know about and be able to understand, the out-of-the-box intended mechanism for being able to establish the total cost of ownership for business applications is what we call it comes from the IT financial modeling engine that's built into ServiceNow. And it's not actually shown in here, but you take a set of expense lines coming from general ledger, you bucket it into certain these buckets. These are a fixed set of buckets. So you bucket those expenses. Those expenses are then distributed into a set of shared services via scripts, percentages, some sort of context. So you can configure how this from the buckets and distribution in shared services. Then you also configure how it distributes into your application inventory. And finally, up to the business units. If you're tying business units to your business applications, you get the distribution up to your business units. So that is the out-of-the-box total cost of ownership. As I mentioned before, the total cost of ownership as well as the shared services representative costs are going to show up as indicators in your technology portfolio. So the costs are down there in the indicators. TCO and specific bucket costs are represented as the indicators. It's an advanced maturity. It can be a very complex sort of thing to do. Sometimes customers just start with a number, or maybe you have other systems that produce that number for you. There are ways to skip the financial modeling engine and go straight to the indicators, or at least to the source that the indicators pull from. That's where your implementation specialists can help you. If nothing else, I've seen customers start with just a simple expose the cost attribute on the business application and somebody fills it in. That's the most base level of maturity, zero maturity level, but it still gives you something to start with. We, of course, recommend moving forward to more advanced models. So we mentioned the indicators. We've talked about it. You've seen it several times today. This is a great view. What do you get out of doing all this work? Well, how about being able to do the apples to apples comparison and have something start to guide you as to how to disposition your various applications? So again, you start simple, start with what you have or what you can do, but have a roadmap to mature it over time. It's often that I will see a customer start with just assessments. That's the best they can do. You fire off one assessment, you establish a periodic assessment, maybe not every month. That's going to make people mad at you, so I wouldn't do it every month, but maybe every quarter or maybe biannually. Biannually really seems to be the most popular. At a minimum, you want to do annual. Don't let it go more than a year. Other things to consider. You might have a different scoring profile between on-premise and cloud-based applications, things that are infrastructure as a service versus SaaS. You can accommodate this. The idea is creating scoring profiles that accommodate the nature, but in the end, give you an apples to apples comparison. And so with that part of it, I'm going to pass this off to Alicia. She is going to talk to you about the facilities and information that's available to you to help you with your implementation. So, Alicia.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, you share, perfect. Okay, so in this last minute, I would like to explain what we have to help you with your APM implementation. I think, Mark, maybe I share my screen if it's okay with you.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Good. Okay, so first of all, our team. So we have an APM expert services team. Mark is one of our expert services team to partner with you and help you to start your APM implementation and ramp up your APM adoptions. But where you can go to your self-implementation? What if you are going to start in 2 months' time? Where do I start? Where do you have to help me? Well, sometime back, we decided to take all the experience from the expert services team in all those implementations out there and create NowCreate. NowCreate, you have the link in the screen. So NowCreate is a portal free of use, free of charge, where we have included our implementation experience for all the ServiceNow products. So you will find there are over 750 assets to help you with any implementation of any of our products. And it will include the end-to-end process for implementation or upgrades of any of the ServiceNow products. Talking about APM, we have a success pack called Application Portfolio Management Foundations that have everything that you need in every step in your project. If we go into NowCreate, search by success pack, application, ITVM, product suites, application portfolio management foundation, it will take you to this page. As you can see in the screen, you have every step in your implementation journey, from scoping and understanding what is that is needed, the business outcomes that we want to produce, until the end, deployment, what are the typical challenge I may find there. So talking specifically about APM, you will find all the assets ready to download and use, from the kickoff presentation to scoping guides and workshop. I saw one question in the Q&A, if we can share this process that Mark shared. That process is in the process guide in here, in NowCreate. Just for you, just go there, download it, and use it. So how do you use this thing? From the beginning of the project, you're going to start with the scoping guides. And this scoping guides, we have a list of those questions that help you to understand what is that we need to implement, where are my stakeholders, all these kind of key questions to start. Then we can use the kickoff meeting. So I move to the project program management. I click, give me clear instruction on how to use the material. Just download it, and you will have your PowerPoint ready to go to your kickoff meeting for an APM implementation. You also have process guide. In the process guide, you will have all the diagrams or the process flow that you have seen from Mark. And it will take you through what are the process behind APM, how they work, how they relate with my process. So you can learn all the APM, and then you're ready to go to your workshop, gather requirement, and start trying to understand what are the capabilities to out of the box has, what are the gaps with my process, and what I need to implement. So for that, we also have the workshop preparation guide. So you can use the workshop preparation guide, and you will have all the questions that our expert services team will do if they are working with you to understand your requirements. And then you have the workshop presentation. So you have all the slides to run a workshop. Just click, download, and use. And what if I need to have a meeting with my enterprise architect or understand the integrations? You also have the product integration option deck and the architecture blueprint. So you can take all that material, understand the architecture of the product, and go to your meeting with your enterprise architect. We also include the starter story. So you have all the stories that need to be created and the test steps for each of the stories to test those stories. So stories to be implemented and test steps to test those stories. And when I deploy, deployment documents. And once I deploy, we also have what are the typical challenge that we see out there? What are the best practice? If all these things that we see in other customer, we collect all those experience, included in here. So you can, yes, go there, check it and use it and remediate any issue that you may find when you go live or before you go live. So when do we update all these materials? And as I said before, all this is free of use. You just go to servicenow.com/nowcreate and you should have access. If not, just create a user and you will have access. We update all the materials there. We update per store release, every family release, any new product introduction, and also based on your feedbacks. There is a button on the screen where you can click and give us your feedback, request something. If there is some documents that you need for your implementation over and over and you don't see there or a challenge, just let us know and we will include it for you. And also we get together with partners and with our expert services team and collect the feedback, the lesson learned from the projects, and put all that information for you there. So it's ready to use. And that's it from my side. Tavi?
Thanks, Alicia.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was on mute.
Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, let me know if you can see my PowerPoint.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, Alicia. And I'm sorry that there's no time for questions at this point, but thank you to everybody as well for sticking with us to the very end. We're going to take a few minutes to do a quick wrap up. I'm going to ask our host, Lisa, to launch a quick 2-question poll because we want to know how frequently we should do this, what you'd like to see in future APM summits. I know that the second question on the poll may give you another option, but no text box. So if you'd like to select other, just put additional feedback in the chat. We can grab the transcript. Next, if you benefited from this session and from hearing from our customers and you want to share your unique APM journey and insights with our team and with our customer base, we would absolutely welcome the conversation. We are vested in your success. We love hearing about what you've built or helping out when you need a boost to get to great. So please feel free to reach out to me after the summit if you'd like help putting a voice to your story. And then lastly, we have some things I want to direct you to. We've been working on fortifying our APM community online. So on-demand webinars are always available. They'll continue to get posted. And we've recently launched our APM community, which houses most of our current best practices. We are continuing to build that out. So please favorite it so that you are apprised of new content. Then last but not least, I'm sorry I'm going so fast, I want to let you know about 2 upcoming events. Lily is, I think, putting the links in the chat for you. First is an executive briefing from Roche on their SAFE journey. So you're going to learn how Roche empowered their teams to execute the SAFE framework beyond the PI level, which led to benefits like seeing faster time to market, increasing customer and stakeholder satisfaction, and driving greater business agility by creating a roadmap to integrate lean demand management processes and executive lean budgeting. And then we also have another session. Please register for a free digital experience on our Rome release, and that is happening next week. So I hope to see you guys there. Thank you so much for your time today, and we hope to see you all in a future APM Summit.